Okay, President Proctor, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the San Mateo-Foster City School District Board of Trustees meeting. Today is September 15th, 2022. I'm calling the meeting to order at 5:41 p.m. We will begin with the flag salute. So please stand and join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. We will go to roll call. Trustee Watkins. Here. Trustee Corzo.
Here.
Trustee Chin.
Here.
And I am also here. Trustee Corzo, would you mind doing the translation announcement, please?
Bienvenidos. Si alguien ocupa traducción, por favor levanten la mano en su pantalla o también pueden hacer clic en el icono del mundo y ahí pueden cambiar la idioma. Gracias.
Thank you. We will now go on to item C, approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Watkins, for the motion and Trustee Chin for the second. All in favor, please unmute and say aye.
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 Okay. We will move on to item 3. Oh, sorry. 2D, approval of minutes from the August 18th meeting.
I motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Corzo and Trustee Chin. All in favor, please unmute and say aye.
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 Great. Now we'll move on to 3A, public statements related to non-agenda topics. The San Mateo-Foster City School Board cannot act upon any matter that has not been included and publicly posted on the agenda, except under limited circumstances as permitted by law. The board may refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation and/or action where appropriate. Please limit your statements to 3 minutes. Is there anyone in the room that would like to make a public comment? Okay, Peter, can we check with the Zoom audience?
Absolutely. For the members of the public out in Zoom who might be joining us for the first time, if you'd like to make public comment on something that will not be covered on this evening's agenda, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now, and I'll call upon you one at a time. You'll have 3 minutes to address the board. Okay, first we have Lauren. After Lauren, we'll have Allison. Lauren, go ahead.
All right, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Lauren Long. I am a 4th and 5th grade teacher over at Beresford Elementary. And I'm speaking tonight on behalf of our custodian, Jorge Prieto, and as well as all custodians in the district. We received news this summer that Jorge was going to be moved to another site, and luckily we still have him here. And so I wanted to speak to just how much custodians play a part in the school morale and the community and how important it is, especially here at Beresford. Jorge has been at Beresford for the past 11 years. And over that time, he has formed such incredible and close bonds with families and teachers, and most importantly, the students. And so he is the first person here. Every time someone walks into the building, Jorge's there saying good morning, waving, high-fiving students, calling them by name, as well as with teachers and staff. So he is also such an asset to our community because he is multilingual. So he speaks Spanish and he can help communicate with students and families. And so he plays an integral part of making all students feel welcomed in our school. He's also out and about everywhere. He takes so much pride in keeping our school clean and put together. And he's also out at recess time, at lunchtime. He's helping with the students, checking in on them. And if students are not following expectations, Jorge makes sure to model the expectations or reminds them of them. And he does it without shaming them and helps them to become integral citizens of our school community and the greater community And so, especially over the pandemic, we've been talking so much about students' mental health and how that's so important. And so having a stronghold of and supportive adult community around them is super important for students to have as much stability coming out of the pandemic as possible. And as a small school in the district that has really high turnover rates of our principals, Jorge is the one person who students know will always be there for them. The students call him their friend, Mr. Jorge. They go around and yeah, they just look forward to like seeing him every day on campus. So he's going to be retiring within the next like 5 years, and we hope that he can finish out his time with the community that he has played such an integral part in forming. So yeah, that's my little spot. And I think I can speak to Mr. Jorge, but I know that most schools probably feel the same way about their custodial staff. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lauren. Okay, next we have Allison. Allison, go ahead.
Hello, good evening to the board. It's not what I came to speak about, but I was listening to Lauren's speaking about their custodian, and I'm thinking about our custodian at North Shoreby Montessori, and his name is Gilberto. And I just, a lot of the things she was saying, we feel the same way at our school. So just wanted to echo those comments of, I would say, the unexpected importance of our custodians. And I'm a parent. I'm a parent of 2 children at North Shoreby Montessori School. So I'm here to talk to you about arts funding. So in less than 2 months, California voters will vote on propositions, including Prop 28. Prop 28 is to provide a dedicated source of funding each year for art and music education in K-12 public schools to begin for the 2023-24 school year, which is coming really soon. There is no organized opposition, and the proposition is polling to pass. Schools must spend at least 80% of funding to employ teachers and remainder on training, supplies, and education partnerships. I would urge our district to be as proactive as possible. There will be a mad rush to find arts and music teachers, many of whom have probably left the state due to the lack of music and arts funding. Measure V, which was passed in this district, I believe in 2019, I did not check that, but I believe so, was sold as funding for arts and music, but we haven't seen that come to fruition. And I know that there was supposed to be an accountability of Measure V published sometime this fall. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. PTAs are still raising money for art programs in our districts and materials, and parent volunteers are still teaching art in our district's elementary schools by and large. Please consider trying some things out this school year so that when the money comes sooner rather than later, we are ready with a proven plan to execute for arts and music education. Maybe hire some part-time art teachers for our high need schools in this district and start to explore partnerships with local arts organizations. Basically start to do the groundwork so that we're ready. Write the job descriptions for these teachers that we will hire and start to think about how these funds might be allocated across schools and between elementary and middle schools. Let's be ready to execute next school year by planning ahead this school year. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Okay, President Proctor, we have no other hands for public comment.
Thank you. Item 3B is public statements related to agenda items. Persons will be called on at the appropriate time. You can vote. You had a public comment? Oh, is it on an agenda item or not on an agenda item? What, you can come up here, yeah. Of course.
So good evening, everyone. And I'm here today because I'm a parent of special needs. I also have a typical kids, but anyways, I try to make it short. So my son has been with the school district, I believe, throughout the pandemic. He will be 5 by the end of this December. And we've gone through a lot. And the reason why I'm here today, because lately I my family have been trying to do a lot of research regarding law related to special education. And I really would love to learn how, our school district get the fund or the budgets for special education, because I have reached out to the school district. And so far, I think it's a mutual respect between family with special needs children and the school district. But again, I do get the answer like, Tram, our teacher, teacher A, our para do not get paid well. So, what you're asking for your son is like, the level of a master's degree, and it's hard. So, I know it's the time is limited, but I'm here today because I feel like, we do have funding from federal and then from the state. I know it's go through many layers, and I do believe it's go to SALBA and SALBA distribute the funding. I'm not going to get into all the details, but I'm here today because both of my husband and I, we are healthcare worker. And I'm dentistry background. My husband is a physician, and we own a business in the Bay Area. And I do believe we pay, not just us, every one of us, we pay a lot of taxes. Besides, we get federal funding. I have learned that depend on how big the school district. So, based on the population, by the end of every academic school year, per saying we have 1,000 kiddo in our school district with IEP. But then, please educate me or correct me if I'm wrong. But then sort of like there's a flat rate of, maybe 10, 15 grants for kids for special needs per IEP. But again, beside those sort of flat rate, there's certain IEP that cost the district much more fund. So where does money come from? I have learned it's comes like local tax, and, we pay a lot of taxes. And I got the answer from one of the member from the district. My son not really do well with regular paper and marker, but then he can do really well with app. He can trade the letters and things like that. And then I came back and I was like, well, is there another way, like different modality that, the district can come up to help not only my son, I'm pretty sure beside my son, there's other special needs that who may need those kind of different modalities. I'm not here just for my son. I feel that, I got an opportunity.
I apologize. I'm sorry to interrupt, but the 3 minutes has elapsed. If you wouldn't mind, please wrapping up your thoughts.
Sure. So, I think it's a mutual respect. Is there a way that we can find a way that, maybe pay the teachers more, maybe pay the teacher A more, maybe, there's more special training for not only special ed teacher, but with general ed teacher, so that, you cannot have someone be included in the group by excluded them from the group. Special needs children do have, we should have create an opportunity so that this society, our county will be much better. Like, I never really have those sympathy for, I've been going to Safeway, and there's a gentleman that just helped me with all the grocery bag, and he's autistic.
Pardon me. I'm sorry. My sincere apologies, but the time beyond 3 minutes has.
Yeah, so that's why I'm here today. So I know it's a lot, but I hope that, we all get an idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Your comments are.
Thank you. Do you mind sharing your contact information with us just so we can have more than 3 minutes and we can talk after? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Let me find my agenda. Okay. We can go on to item 3C, Foundation and Committee Reports.
I'll go ahead and start. This afternoon, we had a sanctuary task force meeting. I think Trustee Corzo and I, where it was the first meeting of the year, which was actually really great. We talked about the mission and vision. We talked about all of the accomplishments that has happened over the last year. And we welcomed new attendees and new members to the task force. We also talked about why the Sanctuary Task Force exists and how we can further help as we move forward. So I thought it was a great meeting and it was a great start to this year. And looking forward to the rest of the year with that group.
A reminder that the Education Foundation Gala is happening on October 21st. And mark your calendars. Please be there. Starts at 6:30. If you're interested in sponsoring, if you're interested in donating items, please let us know. But there's a lot of excellent live auction and silent auction items already. So looking forward to seeing folks there.
I attended the Equity Task Force meeting in late August, and at that time, our new Director of Equity and Inclusion, Nancy Bowie, talked a bit about the monthly Heritage and Inclusion celebration events, and we also talked a bit about some of the board policies that are being reviewed at this time, and we will meet again, I think, in a month or so, but that was the update from them.
Ken already shared about the Sanctuary Task Force, and I don't have much to add to that, but we are in a process of scheduling liaison meetings with each of our cities because we have lots of things to discuss. So that will be a report out next time, but just wanted folks to know it's in process.
Thank you for that. We can go on to 3D, SMETA, CSEA, and SMEA updates.
One moment as I promote our representatives.
Good evening, everyone. We meet as a membership next week for the first time for a real meeting. So the only thing I really have to update you on is the fact that it's something that's actually later on your agenda. We're happy to report that we ratified our MOU with the district for annex salary increases for those unit members. And we are very grateful for the district approaching us with this and showing those employees how much they mean. And we're really hoping that this actually helps grow this program back to what it was pre-pandemic, because it is a very valuable program for our families. And I'm really hoping. And I wasn't going to address the custodial situation, but since it was brought up twice, I'm going to. I don't know if people realize, but the reason they consider shifting custodians is because we don't have enough custodians. So if you have family members, if you have friends, if you have anybody who would like to be a custodian, I know we're hiring. And that's why they always consider shifting them around. We all love our custodians. I would be crushed if somebody took my day custodian. That man is like my work father. I don't want him going anywhere. And I know Jorge, he's a wonderful man too. I tried to steal him when he subbed at my site. So I know how people get attached to their custodians, and they do become a member of a family, just like all of the teachers are they're there. They work there. That's what they do. The office staff, everybody, it becomes their family, right? And they don't want to move, and we don't want them to move, but we do need more of them. So like I said, if anybody has relatives, anybody has friends, anybody knows anybody who's looking for a job, please apply. We need more custodians. And then I wanted to take a moment to thank somebody who's not a unit member. I've thanked her before, by the way, and also thank a group of our unit members. I want to thank Susie Riley, because this woman, doesn't matter when you call her, she answers the phone. It's what can I do for you, or how can I help you? And she always answers. I think there was one time in the past year and a half that she's not answered the phone, and she called back apologizing as if she had to apologize for doing something else. But she's always there for us. And COVID is still a thing. We may not be testing at schools, but there's a whole lot of work that still is going into COVID. So we are all very grateful for everything that she does to support us and when we need her assistance, and the fact that she's just always there, and she's a very friendly person to talk to over there. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, call Susie Riley, because I'm telling you, she should be paid as a therapist too, as her side job. Then speaking of COVID and other things, I want to thank all of our office employees at all of our sites. we all know you're still doing a lot in regards to COVID. We may not be testing students still, but they're still tracking, there's still notifications, there's still all these things that are going on that weren't our regular job pre-pandemic. So I just want to acknowledge that and thank all of them. And also for these school office specialists that have taken on period attendance at the sites. I know it's a lot of work and we do appreciate it. We are working with the district right now on something, hopefully. But yeah, I know some people are feeling a little overwhelmed. So I want to thank all of our office staff for everything that they're doing. Everybody knows you're working hard. We all know that it's very stressful right now. We appreciate everything. And that's all I've got. See you next month.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here for SMETA, and it's really hard for us to believe that it's only been 5 weeks since we greeted all of our new students at the door for the first time this school year. I mean, in those 5 weeks, I feel like I need to make a shout out to all of the teachers, psychologists, counselors, and all of our unit members for really showing their resiliency and their fortitude, that everything that they've shown in the past few weeks. So I'm going to start by taking a look at some of the things, even before school started. A shout out to all those teachers, staff members, and for multiple school sites around who had to really unpack all of their belongings, reset up or set up for the very first time in less than 2 days due to construction projects in their buildings. I want to do a shout out to all of our teachers who had to learn ClassLink, which is a new way of housing our curriculum, which was announced to us the day before school started. We since then have had to retrain students how to access all of their online parts of their curriculum. I want to say a shout out to all of our TK teachers who worked tirelessly to ensure that their student staff ratio was within the legal limits this year. I want to give a shout out to all of our RSP teachers, psychologists, counselors that are working to fill for missing staff members across the school sites. I want to give a shout out to our middle school teachers for adjusting their teaching practices, getting all of our middle school students used to their longer class periods as we implement block scheduling for the first time this year. And a shout out to those middle school teachers who are continuing to use their preps to sub for classes when subs aren't available. I want to shout out to all of our members who worked last week in buildings without air conditioning and somehow were able to keep classes running in 97-degree heat indoors. I want to shout out to our K2 teachers, as now they have to work to change their class schedules, classroom communities, curriculum 5 or 6 weeks into the year to implement a new reading curriculum. And those are only a few things that teachers and staff have endured in the past 5 weeks. And I have to be honest, people were tired. After talking to different sites and people across them, I know they're interested in finding ways that we can get teacher unit member input into some of the decisions that are made and the rollout of those decisions so that we can not have to worry so much about people's resiliency, but people can look forward to being here and doing the job that they want to do. I'm super optimistic that this collaboration can really happen. I love seeing the communication so far between SMETA and our schools and our Director of Equity and Inclusion, and setting up some different, different curriculum ideas and different things for our the different months of the year. I'm really looking forward to our collaboration with other stakeholders during our Labor Management Initiative or LMI meetings to work on ways to examine and how we can improve everything so that we don't have to worry on teachers' resiliency to get through the next day. I know that people are willing to give input, and we're willing to work together to make sure that things are and rollout of new curriculum, new ideas, new things can work in a seamless way. So that's my update for today.
Hi, Cindy Chen, Principal at Sunnybury. Good evening, Lori Fukumoto, North Shore View Principal. And we're representing the San Mateo Foster City, I can't remember the acronym, but the administrators. Wanted to just let you know that we're in the middle of our Q2 staff finishing up their training for the curriculum that Catherine just mentioned. And then also, we've been sharing across school sites different resources to celebrate Latinx Heritage Month. And then specifically at Sunnybury, we are in the middle of our Vision to Learn assessment for students. So by the end of within a few weeks, we should have about 100 students receiving free classes. So I just wanted to highlight something that happened today. It was our K-5 principals had the opportunity to have some PD today. And so that was amazing. So I want to first acknowledge Superintendent Ochoa and Assistant Superintendent Chambliss, because it was really their team members from Assistant Superintendent Chambliss's Ed Services team that really were there to support. Chad Slife, the principal lead, had brought us a protocol that he was aware of, and we used his protocol today. So principals gathered, we got a chance to take a look at some classrooms, see students in action using current curriculum. So that was pretty exciting for all of us. And then we had a chance to debrief and kind of compare notes about what's going on at other schools. So that was really a very special event that I wanted to make sure that I highlighted this evening. And then just North Shore View, I want to just say we are thrilled. We worked with Superintendent Ochoa and team members last year to look at how we can build North Shore View's numbers in terms of students. And so we got to grow a class this year. And so we're really excited. We're just under 300 students. So very excited to start the year. And thank you everyone for all your support.
Thank you very much for all of those updates. We now have announcements. Are there any announcements?
I'll just share real quick that I think many of us made it to the Friends of Mandarin Scholar. I don't know what it was called. Like it was like a little festival at Lakeshore Park over the weekend, and got to see some Kung Fu in action, and yeah, it was a good time. So shout out to them, and that's it.
All righty. We will move on to the superintendent's report. Superintendent Ochoa.
Thank you, President Proctor. Many thanks to our district staff, all of our teachers and classified staff for a really strong start to the school year. I want to comment on a couple of the items that were brought up earlier this evening, but we just have a really dedicated team of principals and district leaders that are doing awesome work to get into classrooms and talk to one another about the instruction that's happening. We've discussed this at prior meetings, but our district's academic health is in a really great place, and we feel that we're at the beginning of a process of really pushing for more and more academic success for all of our student groups. Our data certainly suggests that, and we're knee deep in the process of getting that work going. And it doesn't happen without teacher partners, and we're really thankful for Kathy and for her team with SMETA to be able to, let us know when more input is needed and where more communication is warranted, and we'll definitely set those things up and get together with our partners to be able to have those conversations. And then to echo some of the comments that Alicia brought up in her remarks, we're always looking for wonderful people to come and join the district. And yes, it can feel unsettling to hear about a move or a transfer that might happen. And we try to avoid those things as much as possible. And then on a year-to-year basis, you look for the right fit and the right placement for every school. But here's to crossing our fingers and saying, hey, let's go find people who can help us with our school maintenance needs and keep moving forward in that arena. I also heard from a few principals, some updates at the start of the year, and I wanted to put a little spotlight on some of their work that they're doing. The first is Chad Slife. He's the principal of Lead Elementary School, Go Owls. And he's really excited to see some of the work that his staff and students have been doing with their core 4 values that they have at their school. And specifically, they're doing a lot of wellness, anti-bias, and anti-racist professional development and work at that school. And I think it's very cutting edge. And I really think it's wonderful for that school to invest in those ideas and to move that work forward. They're also a location for a pretty awesome Playworks program. We wish that we could have Playworks at every school, but they're like every other employer, they have a limited number of employees that they're able to hire. But we do have a thriving program there at Lead, and we're really thankful for that partnership. And he wanted to point that out. The next principal is from Baywood Elementary, and that's Amanda Driscoll, and she wanted to really share some highlights from her school. And if you haven't met her librarian, Mrs. Fournier, but she's quite the, I think everybody in San Mateo knows who she is, but they might not, they know her costumes as much as they know her. She's out on the crosswalk there, and she just brings a smile to people's faces. And at the same time, over at Baywood, they have 5th grade junior coaches who have completed junior coach training, and they're going to help younger kids play at recess, which I think is actually really amazing that they give kids that opportunity. In addition to that, the PTA from Baywood has planned 25 programs for students and families to experience during the school year. So that's just the kind of partnership that, you know, just brings a smile to your face. We're really thankful to have that happening at Baywood. Then the last school is over at Audubon Elementary here on this side of town. And the principal, Mr. Garris, is just a wonderful leader. And he says, our turf fields are installed and outside our kinder area, and the students enjoy playing there, and it's making the campus look amazing. He really wanted to call that out. But in addition to that, his staff and students are really excited about the new reading program, specifically the PATH training that they received, and looking to see their PTA work continue. They held their first school social on Friday, and kids were playing games, painted rocks to go into their kindness rock garden. And they even had a disc jockey, a DJ there for everybody to enjoy the music and dance a little bit. So I wanted to bring the spotlight to these 3 schools, and each time I report, I'll be able to share good news from different schools. It's important to share that information and really build that sense of community throughout the district and see what everyone is up to at our schools. And that's my report for this evening.
Thank you for that report. We can move on now to item 4, proposed consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered by the board to be routine and will be enacted by the board in one motion in the form listed below. There will be no discussion on these items prior to the time the board votes on the motion unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items be removed and discussed from the consent agenda. The superintendent and staff recommend approval of all consent items. Movement of any recommended consent item is appropriate at this time. Are there any members of the board that would like to remove any items? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Peter, can we go to the public to see if there's any items they'd like to remove?
Absolutely. If there's any members of the public that would like to pull a consent item for public comment, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. You'll have 3 minutes to address the board. Okay, President Proctor, we have no hands for public comment.
Thank you. And no one in the room wants to? Okay. All right, then we can take a motion on this.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Chin and Trustee Watkins. All in favor, please unmute and say aye.
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 Okay, everybody says aye. So let's move on. Let's scroll down, hold on. Okay, item 5A, approval of the 2021-2022 unaudited actuals.
All right, thanks everybody. I'll just put my screen up here and share it with you. Okay. Thanks everybody. Thanks to the team for putting this information for you together tonight. There's not a really significant change from what you saw in the estimated actuals. At a really high level, of the general fund level, the revenues are within like 0.081%, and on the expenditure side, we'll walk through some of that too. They're within 2%, and the variations are in books and supplies and services and other operating expenditures, primarily in the restricted side of the expenditures. And a good portion of that really has to deal with donation dollars that were received by the district that were reported as anticipated expenditures, which didn't occur. And there was also some contracted services for associated with special education too, that didn't materialize, kind of in the NPS category. So those are the primary variances between what you saw in the estimated actuals and what's here for you this evening. So again, we just put together a summary for you of a couple different snapshots of that same information. Here you'll see where we're at in the budget cycle. We last time spoke to you about the 45-day budget revision, and now we're bringing forward in September the unaudited actuals. We have confirmed with our auditors when they'll come in to audit this actual information for us, and that'll be done in October. Again, this is just a snapshot of the general fund closing at a glance. We differentiate the unrestricted and restricted revenues and expenditures and the ending fund balances, and you see that information there. And again, that's not a significant variance from what you saw at the estimated actuals. Here's the we look at both revenues and expenditures. This breaks down for you the revenue sources in restricted and unrestricted and what the totals are. And similarly, we look at the expenditures also. This is what our auditors will come in and audit for you as well too, on both the unrestricted and restricted side. And again, the variances we saw were really in the books and supplies in the contracted services categories. And I share with you what the primary variances were associated with. Next slide shows you again the general fund unrestricted ending fund balance. And this is not a very significant deviation from what you saw at estimated actuals. This shows you a breakdown of the different components of the ending fund balance. And next slide is going to show you other funds, what the other funds closing, what the beginning balance was, and what the revenues and expenditures are, and the ending balance. And this is what our team of auditors will come in and audit for you in October. And then we'll bring back to you the audited actuals after that. So again, this shares you the unaudited actuals are subject to the annual audit. Our audit firm will come in and do that work for us. And then the carryover we have from our unaudited actuals, we'll post those into the current year budget in the next few months. And then the next state required report you'll receive with the first interim report, and that'll be presented to you in December. So again, not huge variances. Again, on the revenue side and the expenditure side, those are what the variances were associated with. And we'll have our audit team come in and go through that work for us, and we'll bring that back to you as an audited actual after they do their work. Okay.
Thank you. Are there any clarifying questions from the board? Okay, Peter, can we go to public comment, please?
Yes, if there's any members of the public that would like to make comment on this item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, President Proctor, we have no hands for public comment.
Okay, thank you. Are there any board comments? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Thank you, Patrick, for all the information, and we look forward to the next round. We can go on to item 6A, San Mateo-Foster City School District and California School Employees Association tentative MOU agreement and salary schedule.
Good evening, trustees and Superintendent Ochoa. We bring to you tonight for your approval the tentative salary adjustments for the Annex Unit members MOU. We are very thankful to CSCA and their ratifying the agreement. Thank you so much. The agreement does indicate that there's approximately a 5% increase.
Diana, I don't think we're hearing you.
Oh, no.
We're hearing you a little bit in real life, but the mic
I'll
isn't.
take on some. You want to check see if you're muted?
Hey, Patrick, would you mind? I think your microphone might be live. Sorry, Patrick, your microphone might be live.
Can you turn it off?
Sure.
Okay. Can you hear me better now? Great. Okay. So we bring to you tonight the tentative salary adjustments of the Annex Unit members MOU for your approval. We are very thankful to CSCA for ratifying their MOU just this week, as Alicia indicated earlier. So thank you so much to CSCA and the membership. The MOU indicates an approximate 5% increase for Annex members of the union. And the salary schedules for 2022-23 are attached for your review. At that, it is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the tentative MOU agreement and associated salary schedules as presented.
Thank you very much. Are there any clarifying questions? Okay, Peter, can we please go to public comment?
If there are any members of the public that would like to make comment on this item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, President Proctor, we have no hands for public comment.
Thank you. Are there any board comments? Okay.
I'll just really quick, just thank you to district staff and CSCA for working on this. I know that we have, we heard a lot about Annex and the importance of Annex to the students and families in our community and the challenges with staffing Annex to meet the needs of our community. And so just thank you for working on this. And it sounds like this came from the district as a proposal. So just appreciate the initiative that you all took to make this happen. Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Watkins and Trustee Chin. All in favor, please unmute and say aye.
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 Okay, everyone approves. We will move on to 6B, approval of local assignment option for teachers.
So the local assignment option for teachers, by law, that allows teachers with a base credential that perhaps is multiple subject to teach a single subject class and the reverse. That is true for teachers that have enough units in their undergraduate and graduate level education in order to teach that specific subject area. So we do have a few teachers listed. All of the teachers that are listed have signed agreements that they are willing to teach a specific subject area. So we're asking at this time, it is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve excuse me, authorizations under defined education codes for individuals listed to teach in their subject areas. So these are their current assignments.
All right. Are there any clarifying questions on this one?
Just one clarify. Is there supposed to be an attachment? You said a list of.
Oh, the list is in the agenda item.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So there's a list of 10 staff members that is in the item.
Any other questions? Okay, let's go to public comment, please.
If there are any members of the public that would like to make comment on this item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, President Proctor, we have no hands for public comment.
Okay, thank you. Are there any board comments, or else can take a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second. Thank you, Trustee Chin and Trustee Watkins. All in favor, please unmute and say aye.
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 Okay, that is all approved. And now I just have to say, I think I forgot to have us vote on 5A. Does anybody remember? It was the unaudited actuals we need to vote, right? Okay. Do you guys mind if we just take a trip back up to 5A and finish that one up? If anyone would
A
like to.
motion to approve 5A.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, okay.
Patrick, you gotta call us on these things, man. Scold us. Just kidding.
Okay, now we can move forward. We will go to 7A, hold public hearing for resolution number 04/2223, sufficiency of instructional materials, and approve resolution number 04/2223.
Yes, good evening, President Proctor, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Ochoa. I would invite you, President Proctor, at this time, if you want to open the public hearing on the question of the sufficiency of instructional materials.
Okay, we will open the public hearing at 6:28 p.m.
So this is an annual fall activity where we come to the board and report on the effort to make sure that all students in our classrooms have not only instructional materials in the classroom, but also instructional materials that they can take home. I would just remind you that this was somewhat of a banner year as part of our strategic plan and the LCAP that we're implementing several new curriculum at the middle school level, and obviously the discussion earlier about our PAF curriculum at the elementary level. So I'm happy to report at this point that we have surveyed all of our schools and our classroom by classroom, and our site leaders report that their students do indeed have sufficient instructional materials. So at this
Right,
point,
so I think we can go to public comment for this public hearing.
Okay, if there are any members of the Zoom audience that would like to make public comment, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, President Proctor, we have no hands for public hearing.
Okay, then I think we can close the public hearing at 6:29 p.m.
And then I guess in urging your approval of this resolution, I just want to acknowledge a couple of people, particularly Joanne O'Brien, our instructional materials staff person who holds the central role in ensuring that all of our sites have materials. And also I would acknowledge Gloria Ehrlich, who is Ed Services Administrative Assistant, who facilitates the surveying of all the schools and working with the site leaders and any who have questions about the process. So at this time, I turn it back to you for discussion and recommend approval.
Thank you. Are there any clarifying questions on the resolution presented here? Okay, do we need to do public comment again? Okay, we'll do that again. Let's just see. Anyone have anything to say about the resolution?
Any members of the audience who would like to make public comment on the resolution, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. All right, President Proctor, we have no hands for public comment.
Okay, then now if there are any board comments, we can do that now, or else we can make a motion and vote on it.
Barring any board comments, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. Thank you, Trustee Chin and Trustee Watkins. All in favor, please unmute and say aye.
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 Okay, that's everybody. That is approved, and we can move on to 8A, counseling guaranteed services.
Good evening, Board of Trustees and Superintendent Ochoa. I'm very pleased this evening to be sharing with you, as well as Dr. Margaret Heredia, a report on our wellness of our counseling guaranteed services for the district. Peter, I think you have the slides. Thank you. If you go to the next slide, please, Peter. Thank you. So the district wellness staff includes counselors, social workers, mental health clinicians, agency support, student support TOSAs, community service specialists that provide direct support with students at the sites. The wellness staff promote optimal learning outcomes by addressing barriers that prevent academic, behavioral, attendance, and social and emotional success. Goal 3 of the strategic plan is to provide a safe, caring, nurturing, and culturally responsive environment for all students to meet the needs of the whole child. The wellness support staff supports this goal by providing individual and group counseling opportunities for students with areas such as self-esteem, social skills training, anger management, self-regulation, peer support and friendship development, perhaps families with divorce, grief, anxiety, and attendance, just to name a few. Consultation with school site interventions may include wellness and safety check-ins, including risk assessment for self-harm, suicide, and violence, and crisis assessments. 504 student study team, IEP, and care team meetings, bullying prevention and intervention strategies, referrals to outside agencies and community resources, informal check-ins, and of course, collaborations with teachers, staff, and family. Our district social workers also serve students in many of those capacities, but are also a bridge between school and community to provide other services and resources regarding mental health issues. The social workers are a liaison between school, family, and community resources. Our student support TOSAs, teacher on special assignment, at the middle school level are important in this role too, as they support in restorative practices, one-on-one check-ins with students, small group work, and of course, tier 1 and tier 2 interventions. Our district community service specialists, they plan, organize, and implement parental and staff information to refer families to district and outside agencies and resources. They are really a liaison between the district, school, and home. District wellness staff work hand in hand with sites and district leadership to ensure that all students have the opportunity to thrive. The progress with this goal of the wellness staff will be monitored throughout the year by using such data points from the California Healthy Kids Survey, administered in the winter toward the spring, and then district generated surveys to staff and families at the midpoint and end of the school year. Next slide, please.
So good evening, Trustee, Superintendent, and Director Heredia. Guaranteed Services was born out of a 3-day PD that we held with all of our wellness teams. So we had all of them come together for 3 days doing all sorts of PD that focused on all of the areas that Assistant Superintendent Hills highlighted. And it was that moment that we wanted to have memorialize what are some guaranteed services. And so guaranteed counseling services, which include not just the counseling, but also other team members, our social workers, our TOSAs, but in particular, we look at how do we support students, and how do we track that and hold ourselves accountable. So we can move on looking at supports for students, making sure that we're doing the SSTs, and we've launched a deep dive on SSTs. And so all of our sites are working on those SSTs from data from last year. And they are coming up with outside of the box, like some sites are starting with 2 SSTs that they're working on from last year data, so that we're entering interventions now that we have the data and not waiting until they are further behind. We're also looking at the social emotional piece with Second Step. So we're looking at how are we doing curriculum and how are they supporting that, and moving into the classroom and making sure that students are getting what they need. We can go to the next slide. Some of our strategies are the curriculum. We've also worked together as a team on getting their input on what the SST process really needs to look like. And they have took part of the 3 days was memorializing it with a year prior work and looking at all of our sites and the samples of how we were doing the SSTs, and we weren't calibrated. Now we are. We have one SST form, and we have one training that we've done, and we've been meeting with our counseling team on monthly, bi-weekly meetings, so that we are checking in with them, student services, and we're guiding them and doing site visits as well for them. We also have a 504 plan that we've also calibrated, that every site now is using the same system, and we're working with student services on training that can also include elementary principals, middle school principals, anyone who needs it, but counselors are the champions and they will be leading SSTs and the 504s. Care teams is also a practice that we've done at all the sites, but they were done a little bit different. Now we have a norm process, and it's all built on with the tiered interventions. And so we've offered a tool, and they're embracing it, and it's really helping us on providing interventions at the earliest steps and looking at our most vulnerable students as a collective team and responding and then memorializing that, so that we're keeping all the evidence of those actions. We have crisis response. We've done a lot of training, and we're going to continue. And then we have the birth of wellness centers that we're working on. And this is really exciting. We just had at our last counseling meeting, 2 of our counselors, well, one of our mental health clinicians and one of our counselors at Burrell, Jonathan Lopez and Cynthia Gutierrez, they kind of talked about their development and walking through and sharing with the other counselors how they have started their wellness centers. Jonathan shared that the students that were outside during lunch, because they're open all day at Burrell, that were usually students that might be, a little bit active, were now in this wellness center having conversations, like removing some of the barriers that might be outside, and they were asking for support, and it's a beautiful thing, and it's changing the culture. So it's a really positive thing, and our goal is to share that knowledge and to build more and to create these wellness centers at all of our schools. They might be smaller and they might be bigger, but just on the how, and there's a lot of excitement about that possibility. We go to the next slide, please. Then there's again the professional development. A real big focus for us has been on threat assessment. All of these have been our focus, but really, how do we conduct a threat assessment, educating? We've sent all of our team, our counseling team. We've also sent new administrators to understand how to respond when there are threat assessments that are needed. Level 1, what does that look like? What is the level 2? Who's our team? We've also looked at the implicit bias is another training that we've really been hitting with all of our staff, and this is also going to include our classified staff. So we're wanting folks to really understand it, and we're also making sure that our counseling, mental health, wellness folks are embracing that as their champion. There's also with gender spectrum, we've done a lot of work, and that's something that our counseling team have seen. How do we support students in navigating and families? So we're going to continue. There's more need for that. And yeah, I think that's, next slide. I think that's it. Questions?
Thank you so much. Are there any questions from the board?
That was a team, by the way. Did you see that photo? They were so good looking.
I'll reserve my comments, but my initial comment is looks great. Everything looks really good, and I'll have more comments afterwards. But my one question is, how do we message this out to the parents? So absent, a parent initiating an SST, how do they know that there's these counseling guaranteed services? Are we preparing to message it out through Parent Square or Aries or the newsletters, or because I think it's fantastic. I just want to make sure that parents also know that there's these resources.
I think that there's that is a next step for us as far as what the uniform messaging is on guaranteed services. Each school right now is having sharing out during their staff meetings so that the staff is understanding what the guaranteed services are. And then we've also been doing, as I shared, the professional development, creating this community where we have our counseling teams now meeting. They're meeting together, and they're meeting with the social workers, mental health clinicians, and it's excellent that we have the whole team under one room, and they're talking, and they're like, oh wow, this is so different. Like, why didn't we do this? And it's that opportunity so that they could see the tier 1, tier 2, but also who are the tier 3 people, and have those conversations. So we definitely want to message this, and some principals may have started to do the messaging, but I think that's a next step for us, is how do we do that uniform messaging? We've done messaging through our director's newsletters, so all the principals are seeing what we are producing, as well as the agendas that have been crafted through student services with counseling teams.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi. I had a couple questions. One is, and I don't know if you have this information off the top of your head, and if not, happy to bring it back, but do you know, so part of Measure V, which was brought up earlier, and some of the other funding has been to increase the number of counselors. I'm just curious, like over the past couple of years, what that has looked like. I don't even remember how many counselors we had, like say in 2018, and how much that's increased. Do you know?
Yeah, I don't have the actual numbers, but to your point, it has increased.
Yes.
It's increased certainly at the middle school level. Some cases for sure 1, sometimes 2. We looked at the enrollment at every elementary site or K-8 site as well. Most schools have a full-time counselor. There's 2 sites, I believe, that share one, but they're smaller schools. But it has increased. So we can get you that data.
That would be great. And then I know some of the other positions are brand new this year. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it would be great just to have kind of a breakdown of what that's looked like over the past couple of years and how we've increased. I think it's good for the community to know too. So as you think about communication, I know I'm moving into a comment, so I'll try to save. One other question is just, I'm getting a bad echo. Somebody not muted?
Could be this. Get on.
It's already down, so. See if that
Hello?
helps.
Okay. It's a little bit, but not better. Okay. No, it's like really hard to talk when you hear yourself in your head. Okay. In terms of monitoring, I know that you talked a little bit about that throughout the presentation. I'm sorry, I'm having like a hard time to me. I need a break.
I was wondering, so I'm really excited to hear about some of the, what's the word? I always feel conflicted saying like standard, is that even a word? Standardization, like when you, like we have now one SST form, because I have noticed that the way that I have heard parents talk about like their SST meetings has been different depending on what school they're at. And, some feel like it's more productive than others. And I think, those forms are a tool to make sure that people have hopefully like positive, consistent experiences when they're in those meetings, because those meetings can be really hard, right? So we should try to, I mean, this sounds like it's going to be a part of improving the experience for everyone. And of course, all of the training. I had a question about the social workers. I'm just curious. So are they reporting directly to you or?
Yes.
Okay. And I just think about like 3 social workers for like over 10,000 kids just sounds crazy. I think about like caseloads, right? Because I'm a social worker.
Mhm.
So what does their work look like? Like, what do their caseloads look like?
That's such a good question. And here's the thing. I think of them in tiers. We're talking tier 3 for them. And really, they also are support of any sort of crisis that comes up. So, you know, all hands on deck. But the tier 3, we should be looking at 3%, right? So then the number is very small. Right now, we're looking at their caseloads. So one of ours has about 29 over two sites, and she's primarily at 2 sites and then at the district one day. And then our district ones that are here full-time, their caseload will be about 15, and then they'll be in cycles of 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the need. And then making sure that we're also connecting with outside providers, right? And that we're doing all of that work so that we're supporting all of the students. Yeah. So very, very manageable, I think, but also effective, and it's tier 3. And then our counselors, they have their own groups as well. So we have, even though we have a lot of kids, we also have a lot of counselors, and they have groups, and then they have one-on-ones as well.
Great. And then I was curious about
A
the
cough drop went down the wrong place.
You're good. I was curious about the mental health clinicians. Are they doing like groups with kids, or what does that work look like?
Yes, and so we have 2 of them, and they have groups as well. They actually, as I spoke to, one of them has started the wellness center at Fiesta Gardens, which is, if you haven't been there, take a visit. It's sensory. It's like really amazing, and there's stations. It's a great experience, and from that, kids coming in there and just calming. There's also the individual. There's the group work, and caseload is it's meant to be kept low enough, but that we're also adding kids as needed, and then having kids that have had the support exit.
Okay, so just to clarify, there's how many wellness centers right now in our district? And
So we had 2 folks, so we know 3, and then we have folks in process. And we have a survey that's going out to all of the sites to just get more information on, like, what do you need? What stage are you at? Because we want them in every school. But we did bring our 2, folks that have already launched, and it's going really well. So we're committed. It's part of the strategic plan as well.
but you said one was at Burrell and then Fiesta Gardens?
Fiesta Gardens, and there is one also at Lead.
That's funny. Those are the 3 schools I was at just today, because I drop off my son to Burrell. I pick up my friend's daughter from Lead, kindergartner, and
Well,
then
you could have stopped and visit all 3.
next Thursday. That's
Yeah,
what I'm gonna do.
you should definitely go visit.
And President Proctor, if I can chime in here, part of what we built into our strategic plan was to have a wellness center at every middle school.
Mhm.
We know from our experience last year that our teenagers are just going through a lot of emotional trauma and emotional issues coming out of the pandemic. And so in order to set up an environment that is the kind of room kids want to go to, it just takes time. We were very fortunate at Burrell to have a counselor that worked there last year already. And in April of last year, Dennis Hills and at the time, Sue Weiser and Patrick and I worked out a plan where we would increase counseling support for Burrell. So Burrell has more school counselors this year than they did last year. So we met with the principal and staff and said, this is an opportunity to do something innovative and to actually separate this counselor from the typical setup of everyone's up in the office next door to one another and set up a wellness center. And we said, let's design it and see what we can put in that room. So it really is quite nice to go in there and see this counselor. Mr. Lopez, I believe is his name, is a wonderful counselor. And similar work is happening at Lead, and similar work is happening elsewhere throughout the district. But the real goal is to set up rooms like this at our middle schools and really initiate this wellness center concept. Continue to give support at the district level, and looking at 23, 24, being able to set up wellness centers at more of our elementary schools. So that we do so in a way where the staff is supported as they roll out the service to the kids.
I'm gonna try again.
So supportive of it because they also rotate and they come in during lunch and share that kind of that environment and that feeling. And they just said it's changing. It's a game changer for everybody. They want to go in there. So
I'm gonna send my kid over there.
Yeah, send your kid over there. I get a pass.
Okay, well, that's it for me, Shara. Round two.
You didn't have echo?
Yes, but
You powered through. Okay. So you talked a little bit about monitoring. Oh, it's gone. You talked a little bit about monitoring, like holistically, and I don't think there's like an argument to be made that all of these services and supports are excellent ideas, but kind of in the spirit of being a really data-driven district and really monitoring every single thing we're doing and how it's impacting our students. I'm just curious if you can talk a little bit more in detail, and not that I need the specifics for each one, but just a little bit in detail about like what that looks like as you think about these different interventions and what the plan is going to be to kind of track outside of just California Healthy Kids Survey, which doesn't then capture kind of how each intervention may or may not be impacting. And again, I know it's hard to do that, particularly if you're thinking about a student that is receiving multiple interventions, but just like, how are we getting a pulse on these things as we're progressing through the years and using that to make adjustments to the way in which we're executing, I guess.
Speak to one of the pieces that we have is that we are monitoring our SST, and then we all know that that's kind of a result of the CSAs, that we have disproportionality with our Latinx students, and so how are we channeling them into the IEP world, right? So it's really to do some more interventions. And so the SST process is that, and we have a list of every site of all the SSTs, and we're monitoring the progress on, where they are, and that we're doing the cycle of inquiry, like 6 to 8 weeks, are we coming back? And if those tier 1 and tier 2 interventions are not working, what else can we do? Let's try some more and then come back, so that we're doing it with fidelity versus that it's a checkbox. So it's like capturing that story of who they are with the data, but also that we're intentional with those interventions. I think that with 504s, if we talk about that, right, that's something that it's a little bit more of it goes into the tier 3 that we're needing more interventions, but that they don't need an individualized educational plan. And we monitor that as well, like who are the students, and it may be that the SST leads us to that. And so that is data that we can be collecting. We will be doing the Healthy Kids surveys, but there's other surveys that we could be conducting as well. I think that getting students, capturing students' feelings on how they're feeling is another, like how are they experiencing school now, would be something that we could explore. Care, so I think our wellness centers is a place that we can already, just from a so just from the experience, we can hear that there's a change in culture. we can walk through that particular middle school and see that there is some shifts that are happening. And I think that that can be quantified as well. So we could do some dives on that. Second step, curriculum. How do we quantify that? Is how are we monitoring our execution of that curriculum? And so that's trackable. We know how many lessons we issue. We can keep track of that. And then we can see if there's areas where some lessons are maybe not as fruitful, right? And don't lead us to those achievements that we would love kids to be doing, and maybe look at some more curriculum that we can add for second step. With our threat assessments and suicide, I'm just thinking of data, right? We could be looking at how are we responding? So is it an appropriate response as far as when a student is in danger, and how are we monitoring that, and how are we communicating that? All of that is stuff that we can do. I didn't mention in here, but we also have the anonymous alerts. And that's something that we've rolled out to, again, create, and that's something that we can track, and we are tracking to see for students or families that maybe don't feel like they can go to, the normal process of reaching out to the school administrator, that we have another way to direct them, and we can track that. We don't track who it is, but we just have, here's the school and here's the anonymous alert, right? And we've had a few, and school has followed up, and they're low, so it's like something that they can really respond to, because it's not 911. It's actually something that we can work together on. Is that enough for now?
Yeah. That's helpful. That's helpful.
Okay.
I have some comments, but I'll save those. So thank you so much.
Okay,
Yeah.
you're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions before we go to public comment? Okay, let's go to public comment, Peter.
If there are any members of the public that would like to make comment on this item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, President Proctor, we have no hands for public comment.
Great, so we'll go to board comments now. I know some people have some. They've mentioned it, so let's go.
I'm so polite today. Comments. I'm very excited. Very excited. When I think back years now, our LCAPs of before used to have social emotional, wellness in some ways, as one of the main pieces of it. But as I recall, a lot of it was site specific, a lot of it was programs, a lot of it was different, I wouldn't say initiatives in some ways, but it was different. And I think when you look at what we value now, is we are really putting sort of our money into this in some ways. Like the slide that you showed with all the new positions, I know Trustee Watkins had mentioned it. I recall before Measure V, or even after Measure V, the number one thing that the teachers wanted was counselors. And because of Measure V, we were able to have counselors at every single school. Before that, we had counselors at middle schools, and maybe at some of the couple larger ones, and maybe some of the smaller ones were shared, but we are able to now have 29.5 counselors at 21 schools. It's pretty amazing. And then I know we had TOSAs, but they weren't as maybe called out specifically for this. And then everyone else on that list, social workers, the community services specialists, the I forget if you pull that list up, but basically everybody else below the TOSAs, those are all new positions. And so what I'm really excited about is that this is what we're valuing, right? The thought is, when you look at, a lot of times you look at budgets and you find out, well, where's the money going to, right? And here we're actually putting money to people, and the people are towards social, the wellness, social emotional wellness. So I'm super excited. It's something that we definitely need, especially after the pandemic. I have been at Burrell. I have not. I wanted to go into the wellness center, but I didn't actually because I was doing lunchtime duty. But next time I will. I'll drop in and put my head in. But I do know that these are some really great things. So I'm very excited about it. You said a couple of questions are related to your comments or your answers. The anonymous alerts. I'm glad you touched on that because I was going to ask about that in my board member statements. I know it just rolled out. So, and I know that it was messaged through Aries and everything else. In terms of the students, where did they actually, or is there a button on their Google Classroom or their, their sort of portal? Where do they actually go if they want to report something?
So there are a number of places that they can go. They can use they can go on their Chromebook. They can also use their cell phones because the intention is, right, that if there is an issue, it's going to surface and they'll go off campus and then they can report it. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty intuitive for them. And there's been some sharing with the community on how to do that.
Great.
And Trustee Chin, if I can just share my screen for a second. One of the things that we did in rolling this out is take it to our school websites. So when you visit the Abbott Middle School website, you scroll down, anonymous alerts is one of the first things you see. When you click on anonymous alerts, after you select your language, because we do have a multilingual community, it asks you what you want to submit here. I'm going to choose parent. I'm going to choose Abbott Middle. It gives me a list of possible incidents. Bullying, cyberbullying are listed. So if I pick cyberbullying, and then it gives me a list of possible places that the conduct took place. So I'll choose in the hallway. And then I'll type in my description. I was bullied at school. And one of the great things about this system is that each case is so unique that the system will allow a person to be replied to anonymously or actually show their information, because you as a parent, in one circumstance, you might decide, I really don't want them to know that I'm sending this information. But in another circumstance, you might say, I want the viewer, the administrator who looks at this to know that I sent this message. I want to be contacted and I want them to know that it's me. So you can see there, it's a matter of just typing in your email or your cell phone number, and then the system sends you that response. So we happen to be right now on the Abbott school page, but I'm just going to toggle back to Bayside Academy and scroll down, and you're going to find in the same place anonymous alerts. And then I'm going to toggle to the next on the list, Burrell, and scroll down. And in the same spot, you're going to find anonymous alerts. So all the middle schools, it's in the really easy to find place. It's this big button. And I think it just makes it really easy and accessible for our students and our parents.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. It's very exciting. I think that's my last comment. I think I had one more, but I'm just pretty excited about this. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm not. No, I have comments. Sorry. Thank you so much for the presentation and for the update again. Like, also really, really excited about the direction that we're headed and the way that we're supporting all of our students, and really just thinking about, all elements of who our kids are and the need to really provide support. And as Trustee Chin mentioned, right, like, it's supporting our students, also supporting our educators and staff who have been, saying that they need additional support for the kids that are in their classroom and for themselves. And so which leads me to one thought about kind of monitoring. I know you talked a little bit about some of the ways that we're going to monitor how students are feeling, but I think there's a real opportunity to check in with educators and staff around how this is impacting their ability to do their work, you know, with students as well, because I know that we heard a lot about how, you know, some of the challenge, and this was pre-COVID, and we know that there are even more challenges kind of as we're emerging from, you know, from at least the intensity of that bless you, that I just think that there's an opportunity to get a pulse on that and to really dig into how various interventions are impacting our teachers and staff. So would like to add that to the, I guess, list of things that we track. When you were talking about the SST process as a way of tracking, just wanted, I guess, to like call out or push on one piece there. I think it's a great way to kind of monitor how interventions are impacting our students and ensuring that we're doing all of the things that we can before referring students. Absolutely. I also think it's an opportunity to monitor our interventions, right? So just because we executed on an intervention doesn't mean that we executed it well, doesn't mean it was the right. So like, how are we tracking, for example, across SSTs, X intervention? And if we're noticing trends around X intervention not working, and then we're digging into why that intervention consistently isn't working for kids across our district. So I think it's an opportunity to track how we're engaging with kids, but also for us to really just like essentially monitor ourselves and how we're engaging. And I think maybe some of that is what you were saying, but I kind of just wanted to call it out as well. And yeah, I know you talked about ways these are all like possibilities. So I don't know if that means like all of these things are happening or you guys are figuring out which ones are happening, but would love for when we circle back to this, for this to be something that we hear a little bit more about, like how we're kind of tracking these things and adjusting as we're going, in addition to kind of this end of year California Healthy Kids survey. It also made me think about, I know we're doing the kind of tiered communication strategy on different topics. I don't know if this is one that's going to come up in that conversation, but I could see it being very important, and kind of building off of your question around just like communication and how we're really sharing with parents about all of the different ways that they can plug in and that their kids can plug in. So thanks for all the work that you guys have done on this.
Okay, I'll share my comments. Thank you for all of the information that you shared tonight. I feel really good about this. I think that, you know, if I think back to last year, you know, you see these little incremental changes. So we added in middle school the advisory period, and I was like, okay, this is good for kids. This is, you know, like helping them kind of break away from just like the academic piece of school and talk about more about the social emotional piece. But seeing all of these other like topics that you mentioned and having the wellness centers, it really it makes me feel really good about what's happening for kids at school that may just need some extra help. I love that you said that you're already seeing like a culture shift at Burrell. I think that's amazing, and looking forward to seeing what happens at other schools as this kind of rolls out. And I think that one thing that, you know, obviously when we went to school, we didn't have this. And so I think what you're doing, other than just helping kids, is also helping to kind of eliminate the stigma of asking for help and taking care of yourself, your mental health, and knowing that when you're struggling, there's somewhere you can go and get some help from an adult. And so, you know, as they move on to high school and beyond, I think we're setting students up for this kind of ability to take care of themselves both physically and mentally. And I just think that's awesome, and that they're going to have this tool when they get to adulthood and they realize that it gets hard when you're an adult too, and you're going to maybe need to get some help. So I think this is great. I can't wait to visit some of these wellness centers and see what they're all about, but just love this. So thank you again.
So I just wanted to suggest that as we, like, I love that we are I think wellness centers can make a huge difference for kids. And I remember when I was at San Mateo High School, we didn't have a wellness center yet, but we had like, I don't know exactly what she was, like a wellness coordinator. And we used to do these small, she was probably like a mental health clinician or something like that, social worker maybe, but it was kind of like we were doing things that like a wellness center would do, right? Before there was a physical space. So I think it's super valuable, and I wanted to suggest that we reach out to the Peninsula Healthcare District, because I know that that is a priority of theirs, and they have like a youth advisory group. And there's also an initiative that they're working on called Alcove. I think they're working on rolling out an Alcove Center in the city of San Mateo sometime in the near future, and it's also a wellness center, right? So if there is support that we can get in doing that, we should take it. Yeah, I'm excited. This is the kind of thing where like, thank you for having the vision, and whoever, like, you know, I don't know who started the first one, but you know, they had a vision, and now your vision is to spread it everywhere. And so I love that. I also just wanted to say, I think like some of you had spoken on it a little bit, but I think it's like important, especially for parents, to remember that like there's a difference between like what is being said on social media and like what is actually happening in real life at our schools. And it's easy sometimes to think that, and it's not to like diminish like some of the altercations or even violence that happen at our schools sometimes, right? Like that is not okay, but it's also something that has happened forever in every middle school and every high school for as long as they've been around, right? Like it's obviously it'd be cool to have like a vision zero, right? Like 0 fights, but like we're not there yet, you know, we're not there yet, but this is how we get there, right? Increasing counselors, having wellness centers, like this anonymous, what is it called again? Anonymous alerts. Yes. This is all part of it, but I think it's like important to, it's not like the topic of, we're not on this topic right now, but it is important, I think, for us to elevate more that like this is the work that we're doing, and that are like I just see so many parents saying like, oh, I'm scared to send my kids to middle school, I'm gonna homeschool them, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And then when my kid comes home and he's at middle school and he's like happy and excited about the flag football team and, you know, loving like his experience in middle school and like flourishing as a kid who being preteen and a teenager, like we want that for every kid, right? And it's also just like a really hard time for kids in general at that age. But anyways, let me get to my point here. I don't know, I want parents to feel reassured that we care about their kids, and that it's not just like this, like I honestly think that parents think that it's like this crazy like cage fight at all times in, you know, in our schools, and that's not what's happening. And I also want us to have that data of like, this is actually, you know, our data around like the chick survey, and it sounds like we're gonna get like more concrete and better data now, but like it's actually, you know, it's not necessarily worse than it was 5 years ago, 3 years ago, right? It might actually be better, and we have to, it's just hard because it's like negative things always get more attention, right? And all of the good days at school aren't getting published on social media, but I mean, it's every parent's right to be worried and protective of your kid. Yeah, but I just, I want the work that you are leading to be celebrated and valued and seen. And we can't just have like negative messaging about our schools and the mental health of our kids kind of taking over. Yeah, anyways, thank you. I think that was it. Those are my suggestions. Yeah, I'm excited. And I'm looking at the picture of the team. It's an amazing team. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we're gonna, is it okay if we take a little break before the next item and come back in about 5 minutes? Okay, we'll do that. Okay, we are back. Let's go to item 9A, PAN recommendations discussion, NCSM school design district equity review and systems mapping.
Thank you, President Proctor, members of the board. Appreciate this opportunity to circle back to this item. As you all know, we had a pre-recorded message for the school board. We have Dr. Noguera on the call with us. I see him. He just popped into the screen here. One of the items that was presented and is included in tonight's item as well is a summary of the recommendations. This is a document that is it's really a combination of the findings for the school design team, the findings for the equity review, as well as the systems mapping. I do want to give Joaquin an opportunity to talk to the board about these findings and recommendations, and then just open up a conversation between members of the board as well as myself and Joaquin related to these recommendations. And I really just want to pass it over to you, Dr. Noguera.
Hello. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Ochoa, and greetings, Board of Trustees. Nice to see you all again. I'm grateful that you all got to see the presentations I prepared. It took a little bit of time to get those all the way through. I was having a little technical trouble, so I hope it wasn't too hard to follow. But in those videos, I was able to summarize the work that we did on the 3 initiatives this past year. We're grateful to have been able to support the work at this point, up until this point. We believe that these were really promising initiatives, really important work that the district took on. And so I guess I'll just start with the first that I shared out on, which was the school design team work. As I shared in the video, this work took place pretty quickly over the course of several weeks with family members from North Central San Mateo. And that group of really dedicated families, and as well as district employees, we had some site level employees as well as district level employees. They got really into the thick of it and were able to generate some vision around what this school can and what they would like it to be. So the outcomes of that work were laid out in the presentation, and it began with the vision and mission, as well as descriptions of leadership and shared responsibilities at the school site, integrated student supports, family and community engagement details, as well as information on the academic programming and expanded learning opportunities. I concluded that presentation by suggesting that the 5 essentials be used to guide that work moving forward, and recommended that a hiring committee be generated to recruit and select core members of the leadership team for this new school. And that after that hiring committee was formed and leaders were selected, that they transform into an advisory board and continue to work with those leaders and report to those leaders as they progress in developing the school systems and in developing partnerships and in recruiting teachers and other staff to make up that school community. So fairly straightforward there. in terms of the recommendations, but the work that was created, the work that the words that were committed to paper are really what we think are powerful and set up this initiative for a promising start. I guess I'll stop. Just if there are questions about the school design team effort, maybe we should stick with each of the three in isolation, and we can move on to the other ones after we talk about this one.
That sounds good. Does anyone have any questions on this topic?
Excuse me, sorry. The school design team, I know that I want to clarify, was this a team that was developed before, or is this what you're asking now? Because I think there was some clarification that I wanted to make sure I understood that.
Yeah, so we recommend that another, specifically for helping another collective be formed to take on the role of hiring and then serving as an advisory board. We believe that you should start with taking folks from this school design team to make up some of that advisory board and hiring team. We believe that additional team members should be on that committee as well.
That answers my initial question. So my main question was like, who was on the original school design team?
Well, without giving you the names of the individuals, what I can do is share that we had 16 North Central families, 8 educators from San Mateo-Foster City School District, and 5 of my team members met for 6 3-hour meetings throughout April and May, and then had 2 2-hour community town hall meetings where additional community members attended and contributed to gave that school design team feedback on the work they were doing, took that work back and revised and reported at the next community town hall. We worked with Dr. Ochoa and another really helpful Diego at the central office to identify some of the folks that joined the school design team. So we worked with the community that was brought to us, and you know, you have some really dedicated family members that were down to show up and get into it.
No, thank you. That was just my initial question. In your presentation, it just wasn't clear, like what was the makeup of that team? And so I'm glad you clarified that. Thank you very much.
Okay, apologies. Thank you.
My question, I think, are probably more for you, Superintendent Ochoa, around kind of when we think about the recommendations and what our immediate next steps are, what are the implications for thinking about school, the actual physical design of the school and kind of those pieces, where are we with that? And I guess if we have some of that information, and if not, when we'll be circling back to that.
The idea was to invite Dr. Noguera back to really wrap up the recommendations and the conclusions from the process. We had planned for it to happen at the September meeting. As you know, or at the August meeting, we shifted it to this meeting. But at the conclusion of tonight's deliberation from the board, with your direction, we have a team, as Dr. Noguera referred to, who was involved in this school design process, and that team will basically be invited to continue to engage, and will expand the size of the team. That will result in monthly meetings starting in October and going all the way through May for a board presentation in June. That will really look like to this board a very clear, strong summary of next steps related to the physical design of campus, the programmatic additions or changes for the school, leadership structures. And I think Bond makes a very compelling set of recommendations related to using the community schools approach, those very research-based, deep parent engagement, parent leadership, asset-based approaches to the work that we do with our kids, extending the school day and the school year, you know, sort of the core strategies. But certainly starting in October, getting a group back together at North Central San Mateo to dig back into the work, to be able to present this board and the community some very clear and focused recommendations, which would then give us about 15 months to execute and get the school open for the 24-25 school year.
Were there any other questions on this item, or this piece of the item?
I had a question about the advisory board. So it would be the school design team, and then it would become an advisory board. Do you have any like examples of where that has happened in other districts, or I'm just wondering, because I'm thinking about like it can be a big ask, but I think if it's just part of the culture of the school, and it's something that can be handed off, I don't know. I'm just thinking like it would be like it's a big commitment. It's likely a big commitment, and would it be like we appoint them or the school votes, or like I don't know. My mind is going like way ahead, years out, and just.
It's innovative work, and what it's born out of is when we met with this group of parents, and I want to call out Diego Perez was there, but also Dr. Rubalcaba and also Dr. Heredia. They were three of the district staff that were there consistently, in addition to Claudia Calabrese, who's one of our school community workers here at the district office. We were really interested, and Bond was very innovative in their focus on giving the parents in North Central San Mateo power, asking them, what do you want to be involved in? And they said emphatically, we want to help pick who works with our kids. We want people to teach our kids who think our kids can learn. I recall that comment like it was yesterday, and this parent says this in a meeting, and every parent in the room is going like this. You know, that we need to pay attention when our parents tell us things like that. So this design work that took place over the next 6 months is really about giving parents access to power and showing them that their perspectives are valued and honored. So there are very few schools in California who have the kind of advisory group that Dr. Noguera is referring to. We certainly don't have one in our district now. And because many school districts, including ours, approach engagement with families as, let me tell you what you need to know. And this is about taking that dynamic and reversing it and saying, please tell us what we need to know about how we need to educate your kids. And I think that's what you're seeing in these recommendations.
Yeah, I would just also add that it's important to remember that equity work can be connected to greater self-determination for those who have historically been marginalized or minoritized in our education systems. So there are pilot schools in LAUSD that have taken this approach. There are other schools in the Bay Area that have begun this way with community members that help to clarify that vision, help to bring on people, and then become board members or other resources that help to kind of guide and steer the direction for the school so that it maintains its community school commitment. Equity work can also do something very different, which is to determine for others what we believe is best for them. And so we are operating from kind of a more rooted in a community empowerment position, where we believe that there will be great promise if community members are a part of this from the beginning, from the foundation, and maintain a presence in leadership and decision making.
I don't have any other questions, but I just want to get into comments, but we're not commenting yet. Okay, I'm gonna stop. Let me write this down before I forget though.
So should I move on to the next? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So the next initiative was the district equity review. The purpose of the district equity review was really to understand the district's capacity to address equity needs, as well as identify priority areas for growth and improvement. And what we wanted to find out was the district's ways of knowing. How does the district, I just listened to some of the questions about monitoring. That was very much what we were interested in. What is being monitored? Why is it being monitored? How is it being monitored? How do we know it's being monitored well? Right? So it's kind of a deep dive into system structures, practices, processes. How do we know ourselves? What are we doing? Why are we doing what we're doing? Our framework that we used had 6 domains. The first was around vision, having a clear, ambitious vision for district-wide educational equity that intentionally accounts for, appreciates, and targets different racial, socioeconomic, and linguistic needs. The second was access to rich, deeper learning, culturally responsive curricula, and practices in schools and for each student population. The third was safe, healthy, and inclusive school environments. The fourth was financial, human, and material resources being allocated equitably. The fifth was meaningful partnerships with families in the community. And the sixth was a system for gathering, communicating, and using data to drive progress. Our time with the district, actually, let me just also share that we did this work between March and May. So that was a little bit more than a month, about a month and a half. We engaged 71 stakeholders over the course of those weeks in focus groups or interviews. And we reviewed 87 documents or data sets. And what we concluded was that there was a great progress made in this past year. In fact, we had numerous interviewees comment on there being a clear shift in the culture and use of data use being a cultural shift. However, our job as reviewers was to really scrutinize all of the data that we came across. And while we saw many promising budding practices and important shifts, they were still too new for us to see the impact in a quantitative or measurable impact. We have qualitative data, people accounting for these meetings taking place that are much more data driven, that being kind of the expectation now, and this being something that's fairly new in the district. And so this drove our recommendations. Our recommendations were to focus on addressing domain 1, the development of a clear, ambitious vision for educational equity. Domain 4, financial, human, and material resources that are sufficiently, appropriately, and equitably allocated across and within schools. And domain 6, to improve and develop the system of gathering, communicating, and using data to drive progress. We believe that that kind of infrastructure is necessary to ensure that the other 3 domains, work on those other 3 domains is promising. Just a kind of general example is as with a new initiative in any area, whether it's social emotional learning, academic, after school, if we can create new programs, we might hire new people, but if we don't have a plan for looking at what they're doing and how it's working, then we will be busily doing things, but not necessarily knowing what we're getting out of it. And so that's part of what we suggest the focus be this year. And we believe that with progress in those three areas, the vision maybe might seem a little bit intangible, but it is when it isn't clear, right? The vision is actually necessary for when stress develops, and it can also function as wallpaper. So what we don't want it to do is for the vision of equity in the district to be this thing that other people talk about. We need that to actually inform SST meetings. We need that to inform how we call for intervention. We know who we go to when we don't have what we need at a school site. That is about clarifying the vision and ensuring that everybody understands their role in upholding that vision. So those are our recommendations. And we said once progress had been made in those areas, then we can focus on domain 2, 3, and 5, which is access to culturally responsive curricula, focusing on school safety, and improving and strengthening partnerships with families in the community.
Okay, question time.
Again, my questions are going to be for you. Can we turn that down? Sorry. Thanks. I just I have a question around implications for kind of strategic plan and next steps. Like how have you been kind of like reconciling these recommendations with the strategic plan? And when I think about some of the areas that are kind of set as like prioritize these after you prioritize these, you know, some of the prioritize these later are things that we are prioritizing now. And I don't know that the argument it should be made that we shouldn't be. I'm just kind of like, as we think, I know one of the questions I had when we were doing this initially was like, we're doing a strategic plan, but we're also doing this side by side, and how do we integrate those two things together? And so I'm just curious about how you're thinking about that.
That's not for me, or is that for me? Because I do have a thought on that.
It's for both of you. Okay, you go first.
Dr. Ochoa, if you don't mind, I just would say we don't really have the privilege to take a full time out and develop some of these things. In many ways, we are tasked with building the boat while we sail. And so prioritizing doesn't necessarily mean putting completely on ice, right? But it does mean ensuring that these things get done so that the other work that we're doing has a strong base.
I think also, if you guys can lower that, can you lower that? Like, I feel like I'm shouting into the microphone. Domain 4, for example, asks that you think about the fiscal, the human resource, the functions of how a school district operates and how those things affect equity. And, you know, let's unpack the initial strategies we put in place in our strategic plan. We have close to $1 million in training that we allotted for early literacy, for trauma-informed practices. You had a presentation at our last school board meeting about the work that we did to train staff on gender inclusive and the bigger idea of inclusivity district-wide. Those are equity strategies. The trauma-informed practices training, that's an equity strategy. So when you start to break down how we devise the professional development plan and the impact we see it making, we have a role this year in applying an equity-driven analysis to the work that we did to make sure that as a system, we're checking to make sure that our teachers at LEAD had access to that training. Our teachers at Park and Laurel and Sunnybury, that we don't have a system where some schools have more access than other schools have access. And so while the work that we did last year to put this strategic plan in place was very comprehensive and very thoughtful, Bond's recommendations are giving us tools to go and on an annual basis, hold up that mirror to ourselves and ask, are we really leading the equity work in the most powerful way possible? So even some of the recommendations aren't, for me, a prerequisite for the work to begin, but rather a tool to refine and improve the work as it moves along.
I had a question just on the, like, I guess kind of next steps in terms of the recommendations, and how do we know, like, at what point do you reassess and understand that you're now kind of meeting or doing well in these other areas, and it's time to focus on the other priorities? And how do we continue to hold the mirror up and make sure that
one is capacity, knowing that the domains require a systems approach. If you wanted to try to do work in all 6 domains, you're going to really water down the product. And I feel like the recommendations that Bon and Dr. Noguera are making to the district are achievable in the next 12 months. But the process of implementing those recommendations and acting on those domains is a process where we're going to do work, and then, to sort of steal a phrase from Vice President Watkins, is, how do you know it's working? Why are you doing it? So the questions that she'll often ask in school board meetings: why are we doing it? What is the evidence that what we're doing is working, and how do we change it if it's not working? So we might dig into work under a particular domain, and at the end of the school year determine the work has to continue to the same extent. Or we might dig into the work in a particular domain and say, we made a lot of progress in this domain, and we're ready to spend more time on a new and different domain in the subsequent year. And for me, the importance of having this be a multiple year, we have a 5-year strategic plan of thinking about this equity work as a partner in that 5-year process. And you all know our achievement results recently really called to our attention that the equity strategies you all as a board have put in place over the last 3 years are really making headway for our students. So this is our opportunity to double down on this strategic plan with these very innovative and high quality recommendations that Bon is putting on the table for us. For all the Spanish speakers, that was a pun intended.
Thank you for that information. The one thing that sort of struck me when we were talking about the district equity review and how it relates to our strategic plan, but then also it's the relationship to our equity task force. And I was wondering, you talked about the strategic plan and you talked about the equity review and sort of going in parallel in some ways. How does our equity task force also come into play? Because obviously the equity review, we're really talking about the North Central San Mateo School, but really, we're looking at this equity in terms of, along in the strategic plan, it's the entire district. So I'm wondering, like, is the link, is this the third parallel? Is this something that the equity task force would eventually take as a subset? Or I'm just curious how this all pieces together as well.
I want to invite Assistant Superintendent Chambliss to chime in here, but I think it was 9 months ago, we made a shift in our work with the equity task force that I think is really powerful shift. What we were able to do at that time was orient the work of the equity task force in trying to create systemic change through board policy revision and adoption. You all as a school board will have a presentation at our next school board meeting with a pack of new board policies that have been vetted through the equity task force process, and Vice President Watkins has been a part of those meetings as well. So I want to give David an opportunity to just chime in. He's been at all these meetings and talk a little bit about what I think has been a very effective, but also just a very deep process for the equity task force to really get down to the word and sentence level and parsing these board policies that some have come to this board, and many more will be coming to you. We expect it to take at least a year for that process to culminate. David?
Sure. You may recall in the resolution that established the task force that one of the key pieces of work you asked that group to take on was to look at board policies and admin regs and really suss out the equity implications of the language. And most board policies of course are sort of grounded in this standardized language that we appreciate the support of the California School Boards Association for providing. But if we're really going to make the policies and admin regs our own, and in a way that really will then drive actions and strategies and things like that, we need to go through those. So Dennis and Margaret and myself and now Nancy Bowie, along with an outside consultant, have gone through these and are suggesting changes, and then we've been able to bring them to the equity task force to get their view on those and additional edits, and then of course they come to the superintendent and ultimately to you. So I think that's an ongoing, kind of at the most foundational level, if we really understand how the board policies and admin regs drive the behavior of our organization, that's a fundamental role for the equity task force to play. That said, we are also in conversation about a plan later on this year to take on other aspects of what's in the strategic plan. So I think as a task force, we're thinking about supporting the task force. We want to prioritize a handful of issues that are embedded in the strategic plan that group can tackle. One of which we know we want to move forward with the group is staffing diversity, and that it was a district-wide effort to think differently about how we advertise, how we recruit, how we onboard, how we interview and onboard, and ultimately retain staff. So I'll stop there. I hope that answers at least part of your question.
Well, and I think, David, just to finish up here, I think the work that the school board did years ago and what the equity task force accomplished at the outset was to elevate this work as a district priority. And I don't think we have this, I think, Dr. Nugget, I think we're like 2 years in and working with BON, some around that amount of time. I don't think we have this partnership if we don't have a really well functioning equity task force that was sort of the catalyst for a lot of this work, in conjunction with other initiatives the district had in place. The sanctuary task force certainly in that category as well. But I think it shows the commitment for our district to know that we have an equity task force that's doing such important work that is just alongside the work that we did last year with BON relative to the equity review and the school design team, and certainly the process mapping.
Are there any other questions on this piece of the presentation?
I just had a question. I'm just thinking about I mean, for me, like the recommendations make sense, and thinking about like specifically domain 3 and domain 5, I envision that to really be centered on like partnerships and like collaboration with the community, with like especially around the health area. Would we begin, I don't know, I guess I'm just thinking like identifying those partners in that part of the work, like would we begin doing that later, or is there value in like doing it earlier? I don't know. That's not like a quick, clear question. I hope it makes sense.
I think it's a great question, and it's related to I believe Trustee Proctor asked the question about where do we, when it comes to priorities, there are a lot of things here, right? Well, if we think about these domains, they're not all the same, right? Creating and clarifying a vision is not the same as ensuring that lessons are culturally responsive, for example, right? Or making sure that people feel safe. To some degree, if we're saying that this is a priority, we're saying you should be putting more energy, more attention into that now to ensure that these other things are possible. That said, capacity building is something that takes time. It's very different than creating a finished product like a vision. So ensuring that classrooms are culturally responsive, ensuring that we have meaningful partnerships, these things won't happen overnight. A vision being clarified could happen not overnight, but a lot faster in terms of turning out something that we then need to engage the broader community with. Ensuring that it's a shared vision is not the same as just generating the vision. So some of these domains, when for example, safety, meaningful partnerships, access to culturally responsive curricula, these are about changing the conditions in our schools. There are so many things that can and should be happening right now because we're aiming for conditions that allow everyone to thrive. Whereas some things need to be built. That's a little different. So that's kind of my quick answer to that question. Because yes, there are lots of things that people are already doing in these areas at school sites that we learned about, but they're not systematized. That was also something that you asked about, Trustee Corzo. We're not asked about, but referenced the systematization of processes or practices. There are some great things happening at school sites that are not systematized, that could be. But what we need are people who are thinking about what makes sense to implement system-wide. Where do we need to have some variance from that? Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we might be ready to go on to the next piece.
Okay, so for the systems mapping work, let me just bring this up. Systems mapping work took place with a core team that met 4 times over several weeks. 2 hours were for each meeting. In addition, 6 one-hour interviews were conducted. There were 1 or 2 people in attendance. We had district leaders, school leaders, teachers, non-classified staff, including staff that work directly with emergent bilingual students and newcomers, and a few parents. The purpose of the systems mapping work is really to generate a resource that can be used for further inquiry or directly for intervention. So it's almost like you're creating a map. So what we did was create a map of the most significant factors that shape how students and teachers show up and what helps to explain the experiences that they have. And it was whittled down to 7 broad areas: belief and mindset, leadership, service delivery model and practices, financial and resource allocation, family and community engagement, data and data use, and professional development. our recommendation, which may seem broad, but I think it's important to note that it's not an evaluative process. Right? It is truly about mapping what is there. And when something is blatantly obvious, we can say, all right, there's intervention that's necessary here. For example, we noticed very little was systematized when it came to service delivery models and practices, which means, you can hear me, right? Yes. There's a lot of variation. It means that there, and as a former teacher and school leader, I know that I at times really appreciated the autonomy to be able to decide how I would do things at my school site, or have my teacher teams or my colleagues, we would determine what we would do based on the student needs that we recognize. That said, when it comes to curricular resources, when it comes to follow-up from professional development trainings, certain kind of literacy strategies being used, we do need some level of consistency. And this is the hardest part, everybody needs support and accountability. Everybody needs some kind of way of being given feedback that this is working well or it's not working well. But we then need people to give that feedback, right? And you can talk to your school leaders, not just principals. Folks are busy. It's when we implement a new practice, a new curriculum, we're not necessarily alleviating responsibility. We're adding to the responsibilities of those who lead, who either provide support, accountability, or just monitor. And so part of our recommendation was that district leaders and highly effective practitioners within the district work together to determine which aspects of the system that currently shape learning and teaching patterns based on what we've mapped out using this resource that we created and the data that accompanies it, to determine further inquiry and or where they would like to intervene. But we believe some practitioners should be in on that work. This work could take place with directors of curriculum and instruction. Perhaps there are TOSAs that might be able to support some of this work. We're not sure, but we'd be happy to think with you all about some of the possible players in that work. And that was where we stopped with our recommendation for the systems mapping, mostly because it's really intended to serve as a resource that can drive greater inquiry. Yeah.
Any questions on this piece? Mm-hmm. Okay, there's no questions on this part.
Actually, sorry.
Just kidding.
I was like, I was going to save it, but maybe. No, I have a question around how it's the same question I've been asking, like, what are we going to do with this? How are we thinking about integrating it? So I'm kind of looking for, which is why I was wondering about saving it. Like, part of it's a question and part of it's a comment, but the question is, how are you currently thinking about integrating some of this and what are next steps?
This is a really important question. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not for me.
No, go ahead, Dr. Noguera. I'll follow up from you.
I was going to say, this reminds me of that I did not respond to one of the prior questions about the review process. The process is not something you'd want to do every 5-10 years, right? That would be like looking in the mirror once a month, right? We don't want to do, I mean, some people, whatever, if that works, but for the most part, we actually need to know ourselves in order to serve. And that's what it's about. So as we make adjustments, this process map should be updated to be made more accurate. The review process is something you can do annually, you can do biannually, but you want to do it fairly regularly. And you don't only want outsiders like us doing it. Right? This is something that we struggled with, truthfully, in this round, because it was supposed to be much more collaborative. But it's virtual, right? And so we actually need to create the conditions and provide the kind of training that allow folks within your district to engage in that work as a small collective and be a part of bringing in new people, perhaps even training the next round of reviewers, right? So that they can do that work as well. The folks who were involved in our work of systems mapping can be a part of that work moving forward as it gets to help update it, and perhaps be a part of incorporating new folks in to map other systems that the district relies on. So that's what I wanted to say about that.
And part of tonight's design was to create space and time for the community to hear these recommendations and for the board to hear these as a group and have this conversation, knowing that as a district, we've moved forward with a new leadership structure at the district office where we have a director of equity and inclusion who is ready to work with myself and others to enact and set the groundwork for this to begin. My plan would be to return to the school board in 60 days with a timeline and a schedule for each one of these. And at that time, give a very clear picture to the board of where we culminate the activities for June of 2023, and then establish a new plan for 23-24. And then as we continue in our strategic plan process, as Dr. Noguera pointed out, you want to look in that mirror regularly. You don't want to just do it once every 30 days. And that's part of the design of tonight.
Well, with that note, maybe we should go to public comment and hear from what they have to say. Peter, can we check with Zoom?
If there are any members of the public that would like to make comment on this item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, President Proctor, we have no hands for public comment.
Okay, thank you. Let's start our board discussion then.
I was just gonna say, are we sure no one wants to give public comment? Okay. So let me find my notes for the questions I had. Here they are. I'll just start off by saying that I love how both Joaquin and Diego are so excited about answering questions. And I think all of us, we were like those kids in class who raise their hand first and I know. Yeah, I'm so excited that we have made it to this point and that we're on the brink of all of this work coming to fruition. And I think it's been really eye-opening to just learn about how to do this in a different way, in a way that I don't think comes always naturally to folks in education or to school board members, to think about the whole systems mapping really reminds me of power mapping and community organizing. And yeah, so it's so strategic and I guess I don't have many other words, but I love it. going back to the topic of, you know, the school design team, then becoming an advisory board, I love that idea. My mind goes to like thinking about all of the logistics of how it would work. But I also know that like we have people in our community who will rise to the occasion, and I'm like, how do we like incentivize that? How do we support that? Right? Like we need to like pay advisory board members for their time and give them a stipend, like one that we get, and childcare, and feed them, right? Like that creates the conditions to have advisory board members that will be in the work with us. And I think it would be, I think it's going to be something that other schools will want to replicate. And I think that obviously we start with one, right? Roll that out, see how that goes, and really put a lot of focus on that. But eventually, I mean, I think about how powerful that could be for all of our Title I schools. And then I know other schools will want to do that as well. But let me not get ahead of myself, right? But I think it's just like the focus of this being for students, families, communities that need more self-determination, not just in our schools, but in our community. And like it's a leadership pipeline, or not pipeline, sorry, trying to not use certain language like that. It's a leadership pathway that is very like needed in our district, in our community. And yeah, I'm so proud of being a part of this work, and grateful to Dr. Noguera for guiding us through it, and grateful to Superintendent Ochoa for you know, partnering with him and executing on it. So thank you.
The good thing though, or you went first. I was thinking like, you know, I know my like comments and questions are always like, what are we doing next? And what that, and you're like, let's just sit and reflect and all of the good work that's happening. I feel like that was perfect to remind you to do that too. No, I mean, I think it's really exciting that we're here having these conversations. And, you know, I remember sharing about the work. I think I was at a conference like 3 years ago or something, and I heard your dad speak you know, and just like thinking about the implications. It was around school design, and thinking about the implications for our you know, for the North Central School, and how powerful it would be to bring, you know, this team on board to engage in this work. And now we're here, whatever, 2.5, 3 years later, like seeing seeing what happened as a result of this engagement. And so just really grateful to you, Joaquin, and the entire team for just really engaging in this work, and for pushing all of us to do more than maybe we even thought we were setting out to do initially, right? To go deeper, to have these conversations, to engage with our community in ways that as a district we have never done, at least to my knowledge, right? To have difficult conversations that, you know, we've been afraid to have, to elevate voices that we maybe haven't always wanted to hear from, right? And I say we to mean all of us, because I think there are elements of that, you know, have been up and down. You know, it's incumbent upon all of us, like, to continue pushing to do better in all of these areas. And so, and sometimes it's helpful to just have outside perspective to help you continue to do that. And I think that we've been trying to do that for a really long time as a board, and now we're actually doing it, to your point, Noelia. So I don't think, like when I think about some of the things that come out in systems mapping, like, and in the equity review, like I'm not surprised, right? Like these are things I think we all knew, but it's one thing to kind of know it or have us have a conversation or we're having a conversation, then it should be like, this is a report based on this systematic stakeholder engagement. And we're hearing from a variety of stakeholders that, you know, that are impacted by the work you are not doing. And this is what it means at the end of the day for kids and what they are not able to achieve in your schools, right? And there's urgency behind that, which I think is, you know, where for me, it's like, so then what are we doing next? And how do we move the needle on these things, right? Because every day, every week, every year that, you know, people have these feelings that systems aren't in place, that, you know, there's belief systems that exist, you know, that aren't as supportive as they should be, right? Like that has real implications for our students and their families. And I know that we have a team, you know, to Superintendent Ochoa's point, right? Like that wants to do this work. You know, we've had lots of conversations as a board, and you know, in terms of just how we wanted to move forward in terms of leadership and your dedication to this work, Diego, and the team that, you know, is falling into place to really support moving the needle on all of these things and to engage in this work. So I'm just, I am excited for in 60 days having an update on kind of where we stand with all this. Because for me, I'm thinking about how all of these pieces fit together and how we kind of create this unified, right? Because there are lots of different pieces that I do think fit together, and I do think we're rowing in the same direction. But how do we paint that picture? How do we create that narrative around, like, this is our strategic plan, and this is how the equity review fits into that. This is how systems mapping fits into this. This is how we plan to engage in this work moving forward. This is how we plan to monitor progress across all of these things moving forward. This is how stakeholders continue to be involved, right? Like all of those pieces and how they fit together at like a very high level, and how we share that with our community in a way that's accessible and inviting. I just think there's like lots of implications for this work. You know, I'm like you said, nobody has public comment. Like, I'm kind of disappointed that no one, right, that we don't have a super high attendance around this, and that nobody does have public comment. Like, how do we bring our community into this work? And I know that we have community members that are engaged in this work, but I wish that we had 200 people on, right, wanting to learn about what happened as a result of our equity review, in the same way that they wanted to make sure their voices were heard about what we did about school opening at X time or not, right? Like, so how do we do that and get folks really on board and engage in this work? And, you know, to Noelia's point about the counseling piece too, right? Like, how do we just get folks on board with this work that we're doing? And so I know that, you know, we have communications coming up next, and I know there's a lot of work happening on communications, and I completely understand that. And I think we're like moving in the right direction. And I think the data that you'll present, you know, shows us that we are in terms of reaching folks. And yeah, so I will, I think, stop there. I'm just looking at my notes now too to make sure. Yeah, I think that's my big takeaway, but really excited about the direction that we're going.
I also think, to chime in, this board has not discussed any one item that's unrelated to budget, because that's a statutory requirement you all have as a board. And then the equity-based work that has been brought before the board. The presentations from BON, in addition to equity task force presentations, have been the most discussed topics by this board over the last 3 years. So you're sending a message to the community, and speaking on behalf of the administrators, the parents in North Central San Mateo are extremely engaged in this work. they asked if they could come here and fill the room and champion for this, because they wanted this board to support the work moving forward. And I told them they have your back. We will have a subsequent meeting in June when we have the full plan. We want you at that meeting. But you know, I think you're seeing Dr. Balcao and Dr. Heredia shake their heads and nod their heads. They wanted their perspective was, is this school board know how strongly we support this work? Because we want them to know, and we said we're gonna share that with them. Dr. Noguera, myself, are representatives for the group of 20 or so that were there consistently throughout that process, but also what we're seeing in terms of parent engagement. And Diego Perez will talk about this in his presentation quite a bit, but you're seeing these groups of families in North Central San Mateo and in some of our Title I communities really step up and get deeply engaged in the work that we're doing as a district.
So following off of Trustee Watkins and Trustee Corzo's comments about being reflective, I guess I'm being reflective too. And I think back at where we were, or actually before where we were 2.5 years ago. The issue is that we as a board sort of inherited a decision by a previous board. And when we came on, this was phrased, this new North Central school was phrased as like Measure X 2.5 or phase 2.5 or phase 3 in some ways, because in some ways we didn't really know where we were going yet. And I think when we look back at where we were 2 years, 2.5, 3 years ago, you know, I'm really happy. Dr. Nagara, you and your team, I'm really happy that we've taken the time to go through all of this stuff, because you've kind of focused us where we need to go. You know, we've gone out to the community, as Trustee Watkins had said, you know, your approach and my reasons, my questions about who was on the design team, the school design team, was also to listen to families and community members that we might not have actually gone to in the past, or at least regularly gone to in the past. And so when I think about our relationship and the partnership that we've had over this time, I think it's been fantastic. I think that, you know, we needed you and your team to kind of guide us to this point. Since then, though, like I think things are totally different now, right? Our board, I think we, you know, the Equity Task Force, Sanctuary Task Force, we have the strategic plan. Everything is way more aligned, and I think we know where we're going. And I think we knew when we were all joined the board. And so I'm really happy that you're here. One thing that struck me in your presentation was you had said leadership is the driver of change, and that is what you said. And I do believe that right now we have the leader, right? Superintendent Ochoa and his team. We have a director of equity now. We have a team in place, a leadership team in place that can sort of take what you've done over the last 2.5 years and really put it into our strategic plan, a parallel process, equity in the Equity Task Force, whatever it is. You know, I'm really happy because without you and all your team's work, I don't think we would be where we are today, even with Superintendent Ochoa. But I know that now we have Superintendent Ochoa and his team, and I feel like we are in a much better place to make sure this school is successful and to make sure that we get off on the right foot. And so I'm happy that, you know, the recommendations that you've set out, I'm happy to say, like, okay, in terms of next steps, we're ready to go. Let's do this, right? The 60 days that you're talking about, let's take the recommendations, let's do all these things, and let's move, right? We've made a decision to switch Fiesta Gardens and College Park, and that's going to become the new North Central School. And now we have until 2024 to make it happen. So it's now is the crunch time, right? there was all that planning, all that. Now we're in the implementation phase, and so I'm really excited. And there was a lot of work that you guys did, and I'm super appreciative of it. But I know now we have a lot more work to go. So I just want to thank you for all your hard work. Superintendent Ochoa, I know that your 60-day, whatever you come back with, we'll have a plan in place. So I'm excited. So thank you for everything you've done and everything you will continue to do. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Noguera, for all of the work that you and your team have done, and for engaging the community and for engaging the board on all of this. I was thinking about it, if you're not like fully engaged in what's going on in the school district and fully engaged in the work that's being done, you may think that opening a new school is just something simple. You just, build a building and just open it up and get the kids in there. What's the big deal? But we all want to get this right, and it's not just something easy. We don't want just a cookie cutter school for this community. And I think that the work that you've done and kind of like the spotlight that you've shown on this process has been really eye-opening to me, and I think to a lot of people. I think we know that the families and students in North Central deserve a school that's thoughtfully planned and designed specifically for them. And so I think this whole process has been really great. And I echo what everybody else has said. I think without you, maybe it wouldn't be as great as it's going to be. So I just want to thank you for that. I also really appreciate that we're empowering the community to be part of this school design. And I think that those people that are involved in this process, they're going to be the champions for this school. And when we say, how do we get the community to know what's going on, I think they're going to know, because we're going to be, we need to celebrate the success here and celebrate the fact that this is a school that the community really, really wants, and they're part of it, and they're going to be part of the foundation of the school, and it's going to continue on for many years. And I love the idea that the school design team will become this hiring committee. I just think that, it's like building this foundation of people that are just going to just be so linked to the school, and they're going to make sure it's a success. So I'm really glad about that. And you mentioned I think in the presentation, the video from the last meeting, that we need to continue to keep in the forefront the reason for why we're doing this school, and continue to lead with that. And so I'm going to keep that in my mind too as we make decisions and as we move forward, that not to forget where we were coming from here. So thank you for everything on that. And I also want to just touch on the district equity review. I like that you mentioned, again, using the data it's becoming a cultural shift. And I know that perhaps for people, different people, equity may mean different things. And so of course, with 21 different schools, I could imagine that it's not totally consistent amongst everyone. So I appreciated hearing that that although intentions are great, you're seeing some areas where it's not consistent. And so I'm happy that we kind of have these recommendations and can move forward and kind of get everyone on the same page. So anyways, what I want to say is just thank you very much. This is, I don't come from education background, but this has been eye-opening to me. It's like very exciting to see this process. And I know I can just imagine how much work you put into this and how much work everyone in the district is doing to make this school a success. And just thank you. Any other final comments?
I just want to say thank you.
Yeah.
We were deeply inspired by the vision that led to our invitation for the first round of work. We were again inspired by Dr. Ochoa's invitation to pursue these 3 initiatives. And you all have everything you need to make amazing things happen. And we are so grateful to have been a part of this work up to this point. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And we look forward to hearing from you again soon. Okay, bye-bye. All right, we're going to move on if I can find my agenda. Hold on. Okay, 9B is communication department update.
Perfect. Assuming we could all see the monitor. Perfect. So good evening, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Ochoa, and members of the public. My name is Diego Perez. I am the Coordinator of Communications and Community Services for the San Mateo-Foster City School District. And today I am delighted to present you all with a Communications Department update. In today's agenda, we're going to look over the next slide. Thank you. The website data updates, our layered communication for the new year, as well as Parent Square data and strategies, and finally, a brief communications committee update. But before we go into the agenda, I do want to align the work the communications department is doing as it relates to the strategic plan. So the building blocks you see on the screen, which are family and community engagement, data-informed decision-making, and shared leadership, are very foundational tools that the communications department can go as it relates to our efforts moving forward. We want to increase family and community engagement. We want to make sure that all of our campaigns, communication strategies are data informed with the new tools we've implemented in the recent months. And of course, shared leadership. So if we're able to increase our participation, we do have new voices, and we could include a lot of those families that would like their voice to be heard. With that being said, we do have a new redesigned website. So of course, over the summer, we launched a new site. So if you were visiting our website before that, it would have been a flip of the switch, but there are 3 components that the communications department decided to focus on as it relates to the structure of how we want to move forward with this online tool. So we looked at design, navigation, and content. Now within the design, we wanted our families to be able to view the website and easily access across all district pages, so school site and district alike at the same time. The navigation from each to be seamless, and also to be able to see the various components that each school site can bring from their own corresponding communities. And then of course, content. So in the previous website, we did have curriculum information or nutritional information, but having that be seamless to each school site was a bit hard. So this new website platform provides us the ability for the district site to own a lot of the curriculum information, nutritional menus for families to access, and for school sites to see them readily available and just print the PDF if they like to share with their families. With that being said, we do have some very nice data as it relates to 2019 and 2022. So if we look at July and August, given that this is the time where our families normally engage a lot on the online realm for school districts, I wanted to compare it to 2019, which was when we were in person. And of course, 2022, because we're fully in person, of course, now. We have seen a 49% increase of total users visiting the website. Now, this increase can do with, one, the redesigned website, and also our layered communications approach, because we did see a new increase in the August when we started our communications methods as well. And how they visit us is important because it aligns with the other strategies we've implemented. I'll talk about Parent Square in a second, but families are visiting us more on their mobile devices. So making sure that families can access our information in a mobile-friendly way is important for us to be able to strategize further on how we move with the content that's being updated. And traffic acquisition is something important to look at when it comes to how families, prospective families, or just community members are visiting the website. These are the 3 components that I would like to outline for you all, which is organic search engines, direct search, and of course, referral and social. For organic searches, these are just general Yahoo, Google searches that you would just pop in the name of San Mateo-Foster City School District. And this is favorable when it comes to the marketing online communication realm, because these are not paid for. So these are the most on our list, being 28,000 from July to August of 2022. With that being said, direct searches are just direct searches that people type in on the World Wide Web, www.smfcsd.net. Also second on the list, which is favorable because we don't pay for it, and it's just directly to our website. And then finally, referral and social. I clumped these 2 together because these are external efforts. So referral specifically would be like our partnership with Niche, which is an online platform that families and community members can review. Any links that people click on that platform go to our website are referrals. And then of course, social media with our layered communications approach, we have seen an increase of those clicks on our social media posts as well, leading back to our website. So now we're going to go into the layered communication strategy. So last year, we implemented a series of communication channels that we wanted to reach our families. And of course, this year, we wanted to streamline and capture it in a way that it's easy for families and community members to digest. So with that, I'll outline briefly what that would look like. So in the layered communication approach, it starts with a topic led by the Board of Trustees. So it starts with the board study session. Now that board study session then gets disseminated to families and community members via in-person engagements. Now, these in-person engagements, of course, are spread across the month for families to be able to access if they can do so. But if not, we also have a strategy to make sure that the channels of our communication tools are disseminated throughout in various methods. So social media, podcasts, the district-wide community newsletter, and as well the Parent Square newsletters for families to be able to access it. With that, I'd like to show you the strategy in action. So of course, in September, the topic focus from the board study session was equity-focused student achievement, which the board were in the room and we discussed the L3 report and of course looked at that data. Now that same topic was then brought to San Mateo Park Elementary with two of our board community, Board of Trustees that visited, of course, and were able to engage in meaningful conversations with our families at that school site. Then from there, we touched base again on a YouTube live town hall that just happened yesterday. And in that, we did have further comments, live chat for families, really great questions. And then, of course, next week, we'll be at Middle Heights Elementary in the morning for some Café con Diego to further that conversation and spread the awareness for families that may not be able to attend the evening shifts or the evening meeting shifts to the morning, of course. And then from there, we also wanted to disseminate this across all communication platforms that we have at our disposal. With this implementation, again, looking at July to August, we have seen a hike in our social media platforms. So specifically, Facebook has seen a 44% increase of overall engagement. Our Instagram has seen a 15% increase of following, which pushes us over the 1,000 follower mark. It's kind of hard on Instagram to do that. So it's really nice to get it at the start of this school year. So we have a clean slate to how we look at the next school year for our Instagram specifically, for example. But cumulatively, the district has seen an 8% increase of overall social media channels from YouTube subscribers to Twitter followers, Instagram followers, and of course, Facebook followers being the most of our families where they are engaging in. Now, we're going to shift to how we're communicating with our families as it relates to our internal communication methodologies. So we initiated Parent Square in the February, we brought it up to discuss it with the Board of Trustees. And then over summer, we provided various ways for families and our internal staff and families to learn more about it. So we messaged it to them in our messaging for staff overviews with videos. We provided a calendar for internal staff to get a sense of when trainings would come, when parents would have access, and also when teachers would be provided access to utilize this platform. And families were also given a family overview for them to get a better sense of what is explained and how to utilize the Parent Square feature. At the same time, we did also announce it to the general public on our website and also on social media channels as well. Given this new tool, we're able to actually engage in the data on how our principals, administrative assistants, and teachers are utilizing the platform to communicate with their classroom and their families. With that being said, we did provide principals and administrative assistants before school started with 2 optional trainings. Parent Square actually provided teachers with a week-long camp that was virtual. They received daily emails for them to be able to access the different features. And then on the Friday of that same week, they were invited for a campfire where they essentially had a walkthrough of the app and then of course provided further resources if they had questions. With that, on the data you see on the right-hand side of the screen, class post is at 64.4%, which is actually teachers utilizing their platform to communicate with families. In comparison to principals and administrative assistants, our teachers are utilizing this more to communicate with their families than we are. Of course, we have a lot of teachers, but it's really nice to note that we are utilizing a platform to communicate directly to parents and families. We also wanted to get a better sense of staff on how they're utilizing the Parent Square app. So we surveyed principals and administrative assistants to ask them how their experience has been. They did find an 82.6% that said Parent Square was just easy to navigate. It's a fairly simple interface, but how about sending communication? 86.9% said that initiating and sending a communication was very feasible and easy to do. And then of course, 70% of them said that they would agree to attend topic-focused Parent Square sessions, which will begin in the coming months ahead to be able to help assess how they're using it, what kind of resources Parent Square already has at their disposal to provide to them, and also what I can do to help them walk through the app further. With that being said, we also wanted to provide families with various opportunities to be able to have that same walkthrough on how to utilize the app. So we did district-wide engagements before school started at the 4 schools you see: Foster City, Baywood, College Park, and Laurel Elementary School. And then we also engaged in back-to-school nights with Fiesta Gardens, College Park, and Sunnybrae to further assist families in that same walkthrough process that may not have gone to the initial phase of our family engagements, of course. With that being said, we now have actual data on family utilizing the platform via this interface. So we do have 98% of our families contactable, which means 98% of them are saying, yes, I want you to contact me. The 2% is more of those that say, no, I don't want to contact, or maybe did not fill in that bubble that says contact. So of course, during these engagements, we also utilize the time to assess and help them with the ARIES data confirmation, which is our student information system that provides all of their contact info straight to ParentsWare. And that was helpful for us to see kind of like the steps that families may have trouble with accessing when it comes to updating their contact information. With that, again, 96% of them are utilizing the email services, and 30% of them, again, we have July and August, have already downloaded and initiated the use of the app. Now, with the 30% using the app, we can further do further analysis on how they're interacting with us in the digital realm. So we do have over 9,000 direct messages. So these are direct messages parents are doing with their teachers. I was at a DLAC meeting last Thursday, and in that DLAC meeting, there was a parent speaking in Spanish saying, talk to your teachers. We have Parent Square now, message them, ask them how they're doing. It was on the topic of how can parents better engage with their students to provide further assistance to them at home in alignment with various programs that the district is doing to provide further help with our families in reading and math. With that, we also have over 1,500 of appreciations. These are just likes that you would do on a regular social media post that you could also do on the platform. And comments on posts, class posts, teachers, I have seen them showcasing the different aspects of how they're utilizing their classroom. They take pictures and provide families with updates of their classrooms as well. Now that we touch base on ParentsWare, we're going to look at a brief update to Communications Committee. Now this year, we did have some Communications Committee members leave our committee. Of course, that's kind of the process of rebuilding another one. So this year we decided to bring in new voices. We did invite members of the SDT team, the North Central San Mateo families, to be involved in the various strategies that we're implementing with communications and invite them to give us their feedback. Our first meeting is at the end of the month. And with that, we're going to analyze the data that I'm presenting to you all, ask them their feedback, what parents are saying at the ground level, and how we can better increase our engagements to visit them. Today, this morning, actually, I was at Sunnybrae presenting on Parent Square and assisting families, both English and Spanish, on how to get the app and how to utilize it to its fullest potential. And then, of course, we will be meeting on a quarterly basis so that I can gather enough data to then provide to them the various reports on how to best assist our families. And of course, at their guidance, we want to know what it is exactly what they want to hear for us to better support our families as it comes to this. With that being said, that is the end of my presentation, and I'm ready for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Diego. Are there any questions from the
Thank you for that presentation. Quick question. You had referenced the family that the Spanish-speaking family that you heard just go through Parent Square to talk to your teacher. One thing I think that I've heard, and I wanted to know if you can confirm this, is that through Parent Square, you can set your own home language And then if the teacher is not bilingual, it automatically translate. Is that correct?
That is correct. So when they're doing the data confirmation in Aries, because they both talk to each other very seamlessly, their native home language would be Spanish. Parent Square says Spanish. Everything on their platform will be Spanish. Anything teachers send to them in English, say, hey, we have a homework assignment, they're going to get it in Spanish. They respond in Spanish, teacher will get it in English. So it's a two-way translation tool that assists families all around.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
I had two questions. One was for some of the numbers you shared about site visits. Are those, maybe you said this, but are those individual users or just number of site visits? Like, I know there's a term for that, but I'm not saying. Do you know what I mean?
One more time, I'm sorry.
So when people visit, when we're talking about number of searches, are these? Yeah. Are they individual, like 28,000 people
Yeah.
or 28,000 times?
So 28,000 people found us organically in that example. Yes. So when you add those up, that is the total number of total searches or total traffic acquisitions. But when we break it down, 28,000 of them found us organically.
I guess my question is it possible that somebody visited the site 1,000 times or are these each unique people?
Oh, that's actually a great question because with the new, I'm going to go into a little bit of the technical terms, but Google did launch a new GA4 analytics that allows us to track specific IP addresses. So if you're at the school district and you search on our network, that's one user, and it won't say that you're another user if it's on the same laptop with us. But if you go home, then that would be two because that's a different IP address. Yes. Sorry. Yes.
No, that was exactly the question I was asking. I'm just trying to get a sense. And then my other question, I'm just wondering, do you have goals around, like when you look at kind of where these are, like places where you're focusing on, like we're really trying to increase usage of Facebook?
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to the digital realm, I mean, numbers are nice. So of course, increasing the numbers are really great when it comes to us engaging with our families online. But the goal is to have more in-person engagement, which is why the first building block is family and community engagement. So I know you mentioned about having, a lot of people here, and that's the goal, to make sure that they have this authentic relationship with us on the digital realm to then transcend further and bring them here in the real and have a conversation with us. So I would say the goal is that first building block, making sure that we increase our participation for our engagements. Overall increases is nice, yes.
I had a question. I can't remember the number, but you said that there was, I don't know, a bunch of teachers that are using it, like classrooms and stuff. Do you know how much usage is from middle school versus elementary school?
I did look at both. I would say I can count up to 20 teachers that have utilized the middle school or middle school teachers that have utilized this platform. Very staggered, so it's not necessarily the same amount of communication that our elementary school teachers do, given that they will share classroom artwork or so forth and so on in their engagements. But we have data that middle schools teachers are using it to communicate, yes.
My follow-up is there any plan to like consolidate, I guess, Parent Square and School Loop? Because I get a lot of emails through School Loop, but then I get like district stuff through Parent Square. So I was just wondering if there's any plans to make that.
On that topic, I did collaborate with technology to better understand the utilization of School Loop. I did find that we already have Google Classroom, we have the full suite, and further research on that does show that we can email families via the Google Classroom, and also Google Classroom is directly integrated to Aries. So School Loop doesn't have that direct integration to Aries, so everything is manual and they push send. But when it comes to us consolidating, I would see Google Classroom and Aries talking to one another and Google Classroom taking over on those notifications that you're currently receiving from School Loop.
And if I can chime in here, President Proctor, this is, to sort of circle back to the idea of how we arrive at making decisions and what process we use to bring parents and our staff into the equation. You've got a lot of middle school teachers who are used to using School Loop. So there's a lot of trust and familiarity with it. And we think that Parent Square has a very powerful tool to seamlessly integrate grading with comms, with district info. And it's aligned to what the high school district is using. They're using Parent Square as well, the grading platform within Parent Square as well. So Diego Perez and one or more members of David's team on the Ed Services side will spend some time this fall and early spring meeting with a group of parent representatives and staff representatives, what Kathy Pratt mentioned in her comments, to go through a process to explain and give time and space for people to give their feedback about why a change isn't warranted or what their concerns are with a potential change. The system right now, Parent Square is ready to go. I mean, Aries is ready to go. It's literally a plug and play to use the system. We actually talked about it last spring. I think there were some in the room who wanted us to just make it happen. And we decided, no, let's give this time. Grading is a really important thing that a lot of teachers and staff and parents are really invested in how the system works. But this is our opportunity over the next 6 months to go through a process that really builds confidence in how we make decisions. And we might be sitting here in March saying we're going to use the new tool, or we might say no, we need more time to think about it.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, let's go to public comment then.
Hey, if there are any members of the public that would like to make comment on this item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, Catherine, go ahead.
Hello, this is Catherine Pratt, and first of all, I want to thank you, Superintendent Ochoa, for bringing up the idea of having some conversations around this. I know that just a comment on Parent Square itself, I'm going to be honest, I have not used this tool, and I know most people on my staff probably haven't used this tool, and a lot of others haven't because of the training that was provided or not provided. We got an email on the 8th of August, a couple days before school started, explaining that this was going to be a new tool and encouraging us to sign up for the training, the boot camp, or I guess I called it summer camp. The final day where people were allowed to ask questions and everything happened at 11 a.m. on a Friday when all of us were in school in session. So we wouldn't have been able to attend that Zoom meeting because we were with students. And then we were given the option to watch a 30-minute video. I have a comment from one of my colleagues who says, if they haven't provided adequate training during contact hours, we really aren't feeling obligated to use the tool. So making sure that we have adequate training before something rolls out would be really helpful for us. So that's just my comment on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Okay, President Proctor, there are no other hands for public comment.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to the board for board comments discussion. I can start. How about that? Diego, thank you for all of the information you shared, and thank you for I don't know, giving like a refreshing new vibe to our school district communications over the last year or so. I think everything that comes through our district communication wise. It has a fresh look. It's easily accessible. You can go to a Cafe Con Diego, or you can go to you can watch YouTube, or you can go to a board community workshop. There's so many different options for people to engage and participate. They're still not coming to school board meetings in person, but that's coming, I'm sure. But I think that I can tell you're working really hard, and it's just really, it's nice to see, and it's like nice to receive the communications, and things look friendly and professional at the same time. I was gonna say, in terms of just my question about the different apps, I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention, just because if you're not in middle school yet, if your children aren't there, you may not realize that you're, in addition to the two different platforms, Parent Square and School Loop, I am also getting emails every day from Google Classroom. So it just, for a middle school parent, it feels like a little bit like a lot coming from different places. And so, you know, I just wanted to share that information, and maybe others are feeling the same. But I think everything's been really, really positive, and I noticed, I can see that the engagement is increasing. Like, for example, on the Daily Journal article, I saw that there was a comment from the San Mateo-Foster City Communications, School District Communications group. So I can see the engagement out in the public, and I think as many different ways that we can reach out, whether it's Facebook or all the different social medias, it's just going to be to our benefit to helping spread the word. So I appreciate all the work that you're doing, and keep it up. Thank you.
I'll just add that, yeah, I appreciate knowing that, I am the kind of person that I am just like swamped with emails. So now I can just like always open Parent Square, and like within like one or two scrolls, there's like the weekly newsletters, and it has all of the things, all of the links that I need, like in one easy to find place. I probably haven't sent a message yet, but I will. I'm feeling inspired now. Yeah, I'm really excited about all of the engagement. I've been learning a lot about that recently also, and it's like that, in these like invisible interactions that if you don't intentionally look at the numbers and the data, you just don't know that it's happening, but it's real, right? It's kind of that in between of like reality and social media, or like online type of things, right? But it's like the modern world, how people communicate. So I just appreciate you having an eye on that, and having such like clear information. And like, I mean, we're a school district, right? So like, information is education, is power, is knowledge. And yeah, you're doing great, and I appreciate it. And also, I just want to like publicly compliment you on like what an amazing presentation you just gave us. I feel like I learned so much, and like you were on point. So
thank you so much for the update. It's really awesome to see just all of the communication strategies. I think for me, like the layered communication definitely is resonating really strongly, and I'm really excited to see how that unfolds over the course of the year, and kind of, achieves your ultimate goal. I would be interested to know, I mean, I think it's like, that's great. I think we all want more engagement at all of these things. And I know it's hard, and people are busy, and there's stuff happening at the site and the district. And we've talked for a long time about like, how do you increase awareness and engagement at the district level? There's a lot of it at the site level, right? And anyways, I'd be curious to like, I guess maybe the next time that you share with us an update, to dig into kind of like some of those goals, and how you're thinking about kind of, I mean, I think this plan is what you're hoping will get us there, but like, how are we kind of tracking that? And are there specific things that we think are like those leading indicators that are gonna then lead us to having more of that. Like, do we think that if we see X percentage on Facebook, like that's going to be the thing? I don't know. Like, do we have like initial thoughts about that? What are like those goals by the end of the year? We hope 20 people are going to come to our board meetings. I'm not sure, right? But just having like a little bit more of that and kind of like what that means in terms of next steps, I think would be super helpful. But yeah, this is like really incredible work. I think we've never seen like these kinds of metrics before around usage, and it's like really helpful to see, and I'm really excited to kind of see how it grows. So thank you for all of your work on this. I know you're everywhere. We've seen you at like all the, I know it's a lot of work and it's not a 9 to 5. So I really appreciate your dedication and work on this.
So just want to start with a couple of questions and comments. Next steps in terms of when you're coming back with additional data. Do you know when are we scheduled in our, I didn't look at our agenda builder, but the next communications update is? February. Fantastic. Thank you. As you were giving your presentation, I think I did exactly what Trustee Corzo did, is we both looked at our phones and pulled up Parent Square. I'm like, oh, let me see, has anyone added any pictures or anything else? And that's one feature that I've not looked at. I think that it's very clear when I get a notice, it's like before last year, we would get emails and then we'd get the robocalls or a text message, hey, check. Now, I don't know whether it's because of the Apple ecosystem or whatever, I got a notice on my watch and then my phone, and I immediately pull up the post, the Parent Square app, right? So I know that I'm probably one of maybe thousands who probably check within the first minute that you get it, because it's constant right there. Then you go back and look at the email, because that's just to clear out my emails. So I don't think that you had 98% of people who are sort of contacted in some ways within our district. I think the issue is like, I'm sure there's still the 2% that will say, well, I didn't know, right? I mean, the issue is that we were for so long, scrutinized because people would say, I didn't know this or I didn't know that. And then we went overboard during COVID, and everything was transparent, and everything, we were having meetings right every week, and everything was right there. And then people were saying, okay, I actually don't want all this information. We've kind of gone back to like lots of communication, but I think it's actually a good thing. I think the fact that, people aren't in the room is because we've actually made it really easy to people to attend on Zoom because of people's busy schedules, right? I mean, it's hard to get here on a day like today on Thursday, and there's an accident on 92 and you get stuck, right? So I think that people are able to communicate and interact with us differently. And so I'm happy about that. And I also think that, unless it's super controversial, we don't necessarily see the hundreds and hundreds of people coming out, right? Back in the day when at our COVID peak pandemic, we were worried about having enough Zoom licenses for people to participate. I think we maxed out at like 950 something, right? Attendees at the height. Now we're down to, actually, I don't even check how many people are on anymore, 21. So I think the thing is that I'm really happy about the communication strategy that you have. Everything that you've done, the presentation, everything else, it's been really great. I think, Trustee Corzo said on point, it's fantastic. I think what you've done in terms of the website, the layered approach, everything that's been going on, I think has been really great. So much to the point where I almost think of the next step, which is your presentation in some ways, just like we've had some other presentations on different subjects, right? People won't actually go ahead and watch unless they go to YouTube and then actually fast forward directly to this presentation. But now we have the ability, because there's been questions about, what is our communication strategy? How are we doing? What are we doing with Parent Square and School Loop and Google Classroom, right? We have the ability to basically index, YouTube, or just cut completely just the start of your presentation and almost push it out and say, look, for those who couldn't make it, or those, who didn't attend or don't want to fast forward through all the way to what time is it at 9 o'clock at night, right, to hear your presentation. We have the ability to push out this presentation in addition to the YouTube live or the podcast or other things. And so I think, it's a really good thing because people will then understand, oh, whether it was equity that we talked about the study session, oh, then we talk about the board community workshop, then we talk about YouTube Lab, then there's a whole strategy and communications of what we're doing every single month. And I think that's really refreshing that there's a process and there's a data-driven sort of decision-making as what you pulled out. And the idea is, this is the beginning. Like, I definitely agree that we need more training. Teachers need more time to get used to it. But I'm curious to see at the next February to see how many more people use it. What is our uptake now? Because I think that over time, it'll be more and more valuable, and people will just automatically go to it. So I really thank you for the presentation and all your hard work. So thank you.
Thank you, Diego. Okay, moving on. Our next item is item 10, board member statements and requests for future agenda items.
I did want to just quickly comment on the board and community workshop that Trustee Corzo and I attended at San Mateo Park, which had a really great turnout of maybe like 30 or so parents and kids. I arrived when the Boys and Girls Club was letting out, and there were just, I pulled up and I was like, why is it so busy? Oh, Boys and Girls Club is letting out, around 6 p.m. and just lots of students and families leaving. And then some of them stayed for the board and community workshop. And so it was just a great opportunity to share kind of some of the work that's happening. We spent quite a bit of time talking about preschool and just hearing from families, predominantly Spanish-speaking families, just hearing from families about there were actually quite a few families that shared about some of the improvements that they've seen, having had students, older students, high school students, middle school students, and then little kids, and just sharing about how they just noticed real differences in the experience that their younger kids are having in our schools, and how teachers and staff are treating them, and just really feeling supported and valued. And we're all really excited about some of the preschool work that's happening and Boys and Girls Club. And so there was just a lot of really great energy and good feedback and engagement. So I just wanted to share a little bit about that.
I just wanted to share that today is the first day of Latinx Heritage Month. So I guess I should say more about that, right? I believe close to 40% of our students have Latinx heritage. And so we definitely want to recognize those students and also, like, I don't know, I guess we also have to remember that there's like history in the making right now too, right? So something that I always think about when we have these months is that, of course, it shouldn't just be 1 month, right? And of course, like celebrating Latinx Heritage or Black History Month or like whatever cultural or identity you want to celebrate should not just be words and not actions, right? Should not just be superficial actions. It should be like meaningful and with data and with resources and with support and like seeing better outcomes for these groups that we choose to celebrate. Because they deserve to be celebrated, but also deserve to be prioritized on the day-to-day. So yeah, I'll end there. Actually, I guess one other thing that I wanted to request, you know what, let me think about it more. Go ahead, Ken.
I don't know if you want me to talk fast or slow. So I have two comments or two things. One, I wanted to also, as Trustee Corzo had mentioned, the FMS, the Friends of Mandarin Scholars event last Sunday. I thought it was a great event, a real sort of community building event, bringing everybody back in, or at least outside, and having that get together and seeing everybody in person again. As folks become more comfortable in our sort of, it's not post the pandemic, but as people get more comfortable in having gatherings and events, I think that it's a great way for us as the board to still kind of go out there and see everybody. So I would encourage anyone who has other events, please invite us. The other thing is, going off of our last study session about preschool, one comment I keep thinking of is, and on the website, we say we had 21 schools. And I know that we made a big point in our strategic plan to if we're PK through 8th. I'm wondering if we can sort of highlight the fact that we do have preschool a little bit more. I almost think of it like a 22nd school, the way it sort of operates. And I feel like it's not really well known yet that we have that program. And so as we move forward and think about, the achievement gap, and as we look at that, I would hope that we sort of change our mindset about, how many schools we actually have, because I think that as that grows, that program or our preschool may actually dwarf some of our smaller actual schools in terms of numbers. And so I just wanted to think about that. I think that's it. Noelia.
So I wanted to request that we agendize a resolution in support of Proposition 1. We are about serving kids and families, and I believe that reproductive justice is something that, is part of what we need to do for kids and families. So yeah.
I was going to share with you guys that I joined another board of a nonprofit, the Foster City Sister City Association. The Foster Cities formed a sister city relationship with Inagi City in Japan. So I'm going to miss our next school board meeting. It'll be my first time missing a school board meeting since I've joined the board, but I'm going to be in Japan because 30 of us are going to go to Japan actually on October 20th, which is the day of our next meeting. But I look forward to coming back and sharing with you guys. I know that I believe Beach Park Elementary School is already participating in a pen pal program, or at least they were going to, and I don't know if it's started yet, but some of our students in Foster City have been already engaging with their counterparts in Inagi City. So I will come back and share all about my trip and tell you more about it. I'm gonna miss the regular meeting. I feel sad about it, but I'll tell you all about my trip. And that's it. Okay. Speaking of future meetings, item 11 has the next couple of meetings listed, including, it looks like we have a study session on the 13th of October. And then the next board meeting is the 20th of October. We have to go to closed session. So item 12 is public comments on closed session. So Peter, can we go one last time to the Zoom public for comments?
Absolutely. If there's any members of the public that would like to make comment on closed session, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, President Proctor, we have no hands for public comment.
Okay, thank you. We will recess to closed session now and say goodnight to everybody. Thank you. We are reconvening from closed session with a couple of items to mention. So one is a majority of the board in closed session voted 4-0 to approve a compromise agreement with parents of a student with specified funding for an out-of-district private placement for the 2022-2023 school year in exchange for releases and waivers of potential or threatened legal claims against the district. And the second item is the board took action in closed session by unanimous vote of all trustees present to approve 2 certificated administrator reassignments. And at this time, we can adjourn if we can get a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Trustee Watkins and Trustee Corzo. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, good night.